following program is distributed by the Bears Barroom Radio Network. It's intended for all audiences. Draft on Tap with Danny Shimon and Niel Stopczynski.
Like Ted and I, Ryan and Matt too have vigorous discussions. In the end, all four of us want what's best for the Bears. There are no egos. There are no other agendas. Have mistakes been made? Yes. But I think both Ryan and Matt are learning and growing in their roles. Before turning it over to Ted, I want to take a moment to tell Bears fans, we understand your frustration. We're frustrated too. And it would be a perfectly natural reaction to say, back up the truck, major overhaul, whatever you want to call it. After one particularly dispiriting loss this season, a season ticket holder sent me an email that read, "Fire somebody, we deserve better." I get it. You deserve your Bears being winners. The decisions we're announcing today may not be the easiest or most popular, but we believe they're the best decisions for the Bears.
We believe that Ryan and Matt are excellent leaders. They have each had successes and failures, but the path to winning is rarely linear, and we feel that the strong ability of Ryan and Matt to work together to build a shared vision of success is the fastest way towards building a consistently winning organization.
Hello, everyone. I'm Aldo Gandia. Welcome to Draft on Tap. Before I bring in Danny Shimon and Niel Stopczynski, I just wanted to say a few words about that press conference. And the three of us are going to talk in detail about it during the first 45 minutes of the show. Then we've got a special presentation with the executive director from Allen Robinson's Within Reach Foundation. And then we'll finish up reviewing the Chicago Bears defense from 2020. So that way it'll help the guys assess what our needs are talent-wise in the draft and free agency. But first of all, I just wanted to say that I have been following this Chicago Bears team since the 1960s, late 1960s, 1967. I was 9 years old and I started following the Bears. So I've been following this team for 7 decades. And this is one of the most distressing periods of my fandom over those 7 decades. It just appears that this team is rudderless, that the leadership at the top just doesn't get what is going on. I don't know what the solutions are. We all have opinions on what the solutions are. But that press conference, which again, we're going to go into detail momentarily, was disappointing. And at my age, 62 years old, I want to see a winner fast so that I can still have my senses about me and enjoy it. Right now, it looks like we are on a downward spiral, and I hope that those two gentlemen that spoke, George McCaskey and Ted Phillips, have the correct answers, because after that 45-minute press conference, it sure looked like they did not. And then when Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy spoke afterwards, it looked even worse. So let me bring in the guys now. Let me start with Danny Shimon. Danny, how are you, brother?
Although I'm doing great. As of yesterday at 11:30 afternoon yesterday, I wanted to get on with you and start talking about this. I was so just like you said, I had a range of emotions. So today I might go all over the place. I need you to reel me back in again, because I'm going to be firing off from left and right, because since yesterday afternoon, I've been wanting to get to our fans, get to you and talk with you and Niel and all of our listeners and say, what the hell is going on? And I got so much I want to dissect, so much I want to bring out. There are 3 questions I had, one for George, one for Ryan Pace, and one for Matt Nagy that I wanted answered. Mm-hmm. I got no answers to any of them. So we'll discuss as we get into the show.
Absolutely. And then also let's bring in Niel Stopczynski. Niel, Chicago Cubs fan. I think the Cubs are going to have a better season than the Chicago Bears are going to have in 2021. What are your thoughts on that?
Dude, as long as we play better than the damn Blackhawks did last night. Holy hell.
Oh, my God.
Oh, wow.
But hey, let's not open up that wound again. Holy
really?
Hey, guys, I'm just ready to collaboratively have an amazing show with everybody today. Let's get it done. Let's rock and roll.
I love your attitude, Niel. You know, last night we did a Buffon 55 show, and somebody came on and said, "You guys are too negative. You guys are, John Buffon, he's always talking negative." And I'm like, dude, did you not see the season? Did you not hear the press conference? I mean, what are we doing here? We gotta talk about reality. So, Niel, let me start with you. First of all, your overall impressions to what Ted Phillips, the team president, and George McCaskey, the chairman of the Chicago Bears, what was your immediate reaction to what they said? And then share what you thought after sleeping on it the night. Do you feel any better or any worse?
First off, I don't know if you guys can tell, but the cat's pissed off. He's not. He's been like this since yesterday, been nonstop. I mean, he's upset. I thought it was absolutely fascinating how much was said without being said. Lots of ambiguity, tap dancing, buzzwords. Thankfully, tons of collaboration. Thankfully that we have people working together, taking deep breaths, right? Putting our heads down and working really hard, right? All those participation trophy type buzzwords that we love, adversity, culture, adaptability. I don't know if you guys watched, Cap and J Hood this morning. Cap mentioned 16 times that word was mentioned yesterday, 16 times. I went back and watched it over again today. I counted 29 times the word collaborative, collaboratively, collaboration, and words referring back to collaborative were mentioned during that talk, and the media piled on 3 more times. So I have told 32 times that word was said yesterday.
Don't forget culture.
Culture was a massive one, right? Great culture. Let's talk about all the great culture we had since we fired Ditka. No answers to critical questions. And, the media did a great job of asking questions yesterday. They brought some heat. And, maybe the Bears can take some of the money they saved off of not cutting on the AC at the media room in House Hall and taking that money, paying some studs, namely A-Rob, maybe some others, but maybe we can use that money to good use this weekend because they got kind of uncomfortable yesterday, Danny. It got very uncomfortable. The culture thing, I know is something you really wanted to open up a can of whoop-ass on. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, for me, it was just, first of all, I just felt insulted. They're sitting there, they're telling us that, first of all, let's start with George McCaskey, right? Good guy. I think he cares. And when he says, he listens to the Bears fans, and when he goes to the parking lot and all that stuff, and he talks to the Bears fans, I believe him. I think he's genuine when he says that. But he says that, that 8-8 last year was not good enough. Okay. However, 8-8 this year, in which he said that he considers not a good season, and that the fact that they, kind of snuck into the last seed in the playoffs this year, the 7th seed that wasn't existent prior to this season, was not good enough for him. However, he's comfortable and he's confident in bringing both Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace back. Okay, if you want to bring him back, that's fine, bring him back, but don't give me BS in terms of all this stuff like that it's not, this season wasn't good enough for me. We're not happy, but yeah, we're going to be good with going with the same status quo. That just makes no sense. And that's one thing I wanted. I had 3 questions going into this press conference I wanted answered. George McCaskey, I wanted you to tell me why you were confident in bringing back Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. Just tell me, and he didn't tell me anything. He didn't.
0 answers.
Nothing. I have no confidence he knows what he's talking about. Second question I had, and we can continue here or we can move on, but the second question I have was for Ryan Pace. How are you going to not make the same mistake that you made in 2017 by drafting Mitch Trubisky? Because obviously they need a quarterback. And I think if anybody had the Mitch fans out there, if you had any doubts or any hope that he's going to come back, I think the way Ryan Pace talked about him yesterday, and I think the way Matt Nagy talked about him yesterday, I think it's pretty clear cut that Mitch Trubisky is not going to be a Chicago Bear coming next season. So that means that it's going to be Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy going full bore again, trying to get a new quarterback in here, maybe new quarterbacks plural in this room. So what that means is he's going to go full bore. He's going to go out and he's going to trade assets. He's going to restrict contracts. He's going to do all this. But yet, tell me why. And I think it was Mark Potash, who Chicago Sun-Times writer, who asked him, how are you not going to make the same mistake? What have you learned? And he just sized up the whole question. Just say it. You know what? It happens. Mistakes are made. The only thing I got out of Ryan Pace was, and I don't know if you guys caught this, what he said that back in 2017 when he was going through all the prospects of quarterback, he had John Fox. He didn't say the names, obviously. He had John Fox and he had Dow Loggins as his offensive coordinator and head coach, respectively. Now, and he didn't feel confident in their opinion in terms of helping identify a quarterback. So that's why I think he went full bore, Columbo with the trench coat, hiding out, making secret calls to Mitch Trubisky and all that stuff.
Right.
And I didn't even tell his head coach who he's going to draft. So I think now he feels confident that he's got with Matt Nagy, with Bill Lazor, with John DeFilippo, and Dave Ragone, who was there in 2017, but he's here as well. I think he feels like he's got some people in the room that can help him identify a good quarterback. I think we all have questions about that, but I think that's what I got from Ryan Pace, even though he didn't actually come out and say that. So I'm curious if you guys feel the same way on that part of it.
Go
I
ahead.
hear Ryan Pace come out and say a whole lot of anything. I've found Ryan Pace generally sticking with the theme of collaboration between him and Nagy, and some high school Harry bullshit of we fought and stuck together. What are we, Northeast South Central San Diego State University, or are we, I mean, what are we doing?
Right.
In his last statement, we're going to put our heads down and work, as opposed to what before? What were we doing before?
You just remind me of
our heads down and working every single day of every single year.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing?
You just reminded me real quick, Neil, of McCaskey, what Jordan McCaskey did also. He said that he was impressed the way Matt Nagy handled the team during the 6-game losing streak. Dude, they lost 6 games in a row. How impressed could you be? Now, I think I know he meant by in terms of keeping the team together, and then way they ended up coming back winning 3 games in a row. I think that's what he meant, but it just doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound like you say I was impressed with the way when they lost 6 games in a row.
It literally sounded like he was making excuses. I mean, literally, where they're finding something, anything possible to shine any sort of a positive glimmer of a light. It's a 15-watt light bulb they're trying to turn on right now to light up a room. That's what it said to me. I think that quote or that question by Potash, was it the part where he chimed in and said, 7 times in 28 years, you guys made the playoffs since the end of Ditka. To a lot of Bears fans, it reflects on you.
Mm-hmm.
What merit is there to the thought there needs to be people more rooted in football to make football decisions than you and Ted?
Mm-hmm.
Danced around it again, a little tap dance action, right? And then Potash came back around and said, no, I'm talking about you specifically. And George goes, that's a valid criticism.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and I think it was about this. Then I think George took it to the point where he thought they were asking about the structure, and which was then he goes, oh, well, if you guys think Ted gets involved in football operations, that's totally ridiculous and all that stuff. Well, there's Ted, right, with his gamer headphones on, with his microphone, sitting there on this press conference on a Zoom call, and he's talking to us about the Bears. But if he's not involved in football operations, why is he there? You're the owner. You have your general manager who's involved, who's supposedly has the whole football control of the operations, and you had coach. There's no reason for Ted Phillips to be there. And the fact that they wouldn't answer Ryan Pace's contract length, that tells me that they must have given Ryan Pace a contract extension that matches with Matt Nagy, and they didn't want to come out and say, hey, you know what? Well, we gave Ryan a 1-year contract extension back in 2018 or whatever, just so that him and Matt on the same. And everybody's gonna be like, oh, they gave him a contract extension. That's what I took from that part. When neither Ted Phillips nor Ryan Pace would confirm just the length. We're not talking about salary or anything. Just how long do you have? That's all they wanted to know, and he wouldn't come out with that.
Yeah. Contract talk was irrelevant all day, guys.
Yeah.
Contract talk was absolutely irrelevant.
It's like they were embarrassed to admit, yeah, we gave Ryan Pace a 1-year extension to match up with Matt Nagy's contract, or perhaps they gave him an even longer extension, and they don't want to reveal that, which would be kind of a communications felony in my mind. You got to reveal that stuff to your fan base. You got to reveal that stuff to the media. When you go around and talk about we're a transparent organization and you're not going to share with people the length of contract that the general manager, the guy that makes all of the football operations decisions, he hires coaches, he's in charge of acquiring players, et cetera, et cetera. If you're not going to share with us how long he's under contract for, that's it. That's just sad. And I agree with Neil, the media, I thought did an excellent job. The media here in Chicago gets a lot of flack for not asking the tough questions and so forth. They asked a lot of tough questions. One of the tough questions was from Patrick Finley. He said that a year ago, You said that we want to see if this is the team from 2018 or from 2019. What do you think this team is closer to, 2018 and 2019? This was what George McCaskey said.
I can't say that. The records from 2019 and 2020 are identical. So the sad fact is we are closer to the 2019 team than the 2018 team. So what we have to do in our postseason evaluation is identify what areas of strength we have and what areas of weakness we have, and work on the weaknesses to make the Bears better.
Oh boy.
Right. So again, he says that this is not good enough, right? What happened this past season was not good enough, but yet, you know what? We're going to keep status quo. We're going to keep status quo. And that just makes no sense. Like, dude, like you said, Aldo, be transparent. Tell us the truth. You know, we need to know. Talking to us like we're kids, or you're trying to just hide the truth and just trying to ease things to us. No, we want to know what's going on. And if this is not good enough, and if this record was closer to, if your team is closer to the 2019 team than it was the 2018 team, that's not good. That's not good.
It's not at all good. And this team, you know, football is the most important thing, but I come from a communications background. And so I always try to take a look at what, you know, how they handle that part of the organization. And this team is in dire need of an expert communication specialist to give these guys tips on how to communicate with people, to at least give us a glimmer of hope, to at least say the right things, or figure out a way to say things when you're not really saying things in a manner that is going to still kind of say, well, okay, I'll give them one more year. Everything that came out of their mouths this week was just awful. It just gave nobody any hope at all to what is going on with this organization. And again, I want to play another soundbite, George McCaskey, and this is Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune. I thought he asked a great question. I included it here, and his follow-up question.
What specifically did you see within this season that gives you indications that you're making meaningful progress toward winning a championship?
Well, we added some more talented players this year. Darnell Mooney is a good example, a lower round draft pick that Ryan and Matt found that blossomed this year and became a key part of our offense. We need to keep doing more of that. The larger question was how well the team stuck together during adversity. Usually when you go through a losing streak like that, people start pointing fingers, people start casting blame. That just didn't happen with our team. And like I said, that's a credit to both the players and to Ryan and Matt for accomplishing that.
George, just to follow up on that, you said the same things a year ago, that the after an 8-8 season, everyone stuck together and everyone was solution oriented. You wound up back in the same 8-8 state and going through the same adversity. What leads you to believe that the adversity eventually is not going to have to be dealt with?
Well, that's a good question. We need to see improvement. We're not satisfied with where we are now, but we think that both Ryan and Matt are the people best able to lead us to success.
He got him. He got him. Dan Reeder had a great follow-up, got him, said, these are the same things you said last year, and you're coming back again with the status quo. And he had nothing to say. He had nothing to come back with. He just said, you're right. We got to get better. We have to improve. But yet we feel like Matt and Ryan are the guys to get us to the next level.
Guys, how many times yesterday did somebody ask for specific benchmarks?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what are what are the specific things that we need to look for to signal improvement, to signal progress, to signal that we're moving in the right direction for a bowl? Nobody could give anything.
They found Darnell Mooney in the 5th round, but the guy had 641 yards and 4 touchdowns. That he blossomed this year, and that was one of his key points there in terms of showing the success they brought in. It's like, I mean, God bless you. I love Darnell Mooney. He's a good player, young talent, going to develop, going to get better probably, but you can't just point to Darnell Mooney as saying as a reason why, you know what, I have faith these guys are going to be able to find my next franchise quarterback, which they haven't done in, Ryan Pace hasn't done in 6 years.
Yeah. McCaskey did say, quote unquote, we do need better production from the quarterback position, which at least he's admitting that. That's thumbs up there. Great awareness on confidence in the quarterback position. His answer was Ryan and Matt's, once again, our favorite word now, collaboration. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. I got to give a credit out to Mike Berman. Mike Berman asked like the most like in your face question to me, I thought, when like we were at the point to where we're about maybe like 40 minutes into this whole thing. We're down to our last like 3 or 4 questions, right? Mike goes, at what point are we going from general to specific here? At what point are we going to stop bullshitting around, right? Excellent. At what point are we going from general to specific? Improvement, progress. All 4 of us will know what improvement or progress will be sufficient to move past 2021. All 4 of us will know. You guys won't know, but all 4 of us will know, right? Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable.
It is. It's scary. It's scary how bad this is. And, I would have liked it if McCaskey would have at least said, listen, I have a vantage point that a lot of fans do not. I'm inside Hallis Hall. I see how hard these guys are working. They've come to me and admitted their mistakes. We're not going to detail all of the mistakes here and now because it would be competitively foolish for us to give honest evaluations on what we did wrong because it will give away what we're going to do during the offseason. But please rest assured, we know specifically every mistake that was made. Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, they've owned up to those mistakes. I know what those mistakes are, and I have trust in them because they've set their egos aside, because they're collaborating in a positive way to fix these mistakes. I want to give them one more chance to correct this. Instead, oh shit, that's a good question. I'm not sure I thought about that. What kind of a show is this?
Seriously. It's exactly. Although just come on and say, you know what, Ryan's been here for 6 years. He's had some misses in the draft, but he's had some good players. Roquan Smith. He's made some nice free agent pickups, and Allen Robinson. I just feel like another year with him and Matt. I think at the helm, collaborating. That word again. Working, playing well together is basically what I call it. I think they deserve a chance to come back and do it again. We've gone through. Supposedly they had 2 full days of meetings up at Hallis Hall, right? I'm assuming in those meetings, Pace and Nagy both kind of laid out their plans in terms of how they're going to attack, each part of the football team, whether it's offense, defense, special teams, coaching staff, and all that stuff. And then George and Ted were happy with whatever they told them. Just come on and say, like you just said, Aldo, perfectly laid out there. We've had discussions. We're all disappointed. But I believe in some of the positive things that Ryan has done in terms of draft and free agency. I believe in some of the, Matt Nagy hasn't technically had a losing season, and he has got a winning record. He's made the playoffs 2 out of 3 years. Just point out some of the positives and say, you know what, they've given me a plan. They've given me and I want to see them go ahead and execute this plan and see if they can make it come to fruition. And after next season, we'll see how it all works out. Just be honest with us and tell us what you're looking at, or just say, you know what, they both have 2 years under contracts, and if I fire both of those guys, then I got to pay all of them. Then I got to pay their coaching staffs. Then I'm going to have to pay the scouts and the scouting department that the new GM's going to want to come in and bring in. You can say that as well. That might be the truth right there, is that he doesn't pay all this money on a year where he had no fans in the stands. Revenue was down, right? He's going to have to pay all these contracts and to go away. And I think he doesn't want to do that. So that could be another reason why, underlying reason why he don't want to, clean house.
Yeah. Say it. Say we made an investment in Ryan Pace. We made an investment in Matt Nagy, and we still believe in those guys. And just say it in a manner that okay, I get it. I don't agree with it, but I get it, as opposed to pussyfooting around with these BS answers.
That's some conviction.
Mm-hmm.
Conviction. Come on, man. Like the entire day was just a bunch of, we kind of feel this way about, and continuity is really kind of where we want to go about keeping everybody together. Continuity is really important, and we battle through adversity, and the culture is, we built a really good culture over the. Speaking of culture, there was a great graphic going around social media in the past 24 hours about the Bears culture over the course of the past 28 years since they fired Ditka. We don't have to go through all of that, painfulness, but, you're 12 to 14 games under 500 in the Ryan Pace era. Why do you feel the investment should remain there? Continuity on confidence of quarterback position, Matt and Ryan's collaboration, Ted talk about vast improvements from 18 to 20. We have a solid football foundation, football culture. And I mean, honestly, like I've never known that George McCaskey goes around the parking lot chatting up fans, talking about, what they like, what they don't like about what we're doing. I don't know if that was a bullshit answer or not, but I mean, given the way that the rest of the whole day went, could have, assumed it was a bullshit answer. It just, it was just a bunch of, dancing around topics, man. Like, just, I know, and being within the four walls of football organization for most of my life, like I get that, the media is not privy to everything that happens, within the family, right? Like all of us, like, I'm on like two sides of the coin now. I've been inside the four walls and I'm outside the four walls.
Mm-hmm.
When I was inside the four walls, none of us had any business really knowing what's going on. Now I'm outside the four walls. I kind of feel like, oh, well, you kind of give us a little bit of a clue.
Right.
But it's like, you don't have to go ahead and like spill the beans on everything that's going on in the organization, but you got to temper the fucking flames. Sorry, excuse my name. You got to temper the flames, because there's a lot of flames around Hallis Hall right now. Not only from, the fans, obviously the media brought a lot of heat to that conversation yesterday. There's a lot of consternation around this program right now, and it hasn't really honestly been fixed since 1992. It's been the same song and dance every 3 or 4 or 5, in Lovey's case, damn near a decade.
Mm-hmm.
You had, countless coaches, countless quarterbacks, countless running backs who you never valued, never paid. Let's ask Matt Forte about how much, he was valued with a paycheck. It's just, at what point are you going to, number one, value the organization enough to make real serious changes, right? At what point are you going to make a valuable difference as far as showing appreciation to really a position group that has carried the weight of the franchise outside of the linebacker position ever since your existence? Gale Sayers, Walter Payton, Matt Forte, I can go on and on. At what point are they just going to stop BSing around and just like make some like big boy moves and stop, valuing like all the really cutesy, things that high school football programs value? Like there comes a point you got to really move forward. You got to, punch somebody in the forehead with your decision making, and it really bring this whole thing together and become like the Steelers, like the Packers, like all these programs that actually do have football culture, a winning culture, football. How many times have the Steelers and Packers gone ahead and lost 8 or more games consistently?
Not many times in my lifetime. Right.
Those franchises don't lose 8+ games consistently.
And then how many coaches survive a 6-game losing streak in a season, a single season? Not many. And then the fact that he said that they bounced back out of that 6-game losing streak. Matt held the team together and they won 3 in a row. Yeah, they won 3 in a row against some of the worst teams in the NFL. But what happened when they play the top 2 seeds in the NFC? They got their doors blown off.
Crushed.
So that should tell you where they're at in terms of, in your division with the Packers, you're not anywhere close there. So how do you have a winning football culture there? And the number 2 team in the Saints, who are playing with a soon to be 42-year-old quarterback who really couldn't throw the ball down the field, and yet they still beat you. What was it, 21-9, or actually should be 21-3 because that last play I don't even cut that touchdown, whatever. But it's like you weren't even competitive in the game. So how are you going to tell me? And now your defense is getting older, right? And I have a whole defensive coordinator coming, a whole new different scheme and all that stuff. You still don't have a quarterback. So how are you confident? And that's why that was one of the questions he couldn't answer. He just never answered to me. It was like, how is he so confident this is going to work out? What is the plan? Give me a glimpse. Don't lay it out for me on the table. Give me all your secrets and all the details. Just tell me that there's a plan, that we're going to attack this position. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. That there's a plan, and you're confident in this plan, but that there is a plan. See, the problem is you have Ryan Pace, who's in charge of football operations, and he reports to Ted Phillips. All right. Ted Phillips might say, oh, yeah, that sounds good. Go ahead and do that. But how do we know? That's why I'm saying we need a football guy, an actual football guy above the whole football operation, so that when Ryan Pace comes back and talks to the football guy, whether it's, Bill Polian, just throw a name out there, for example. He says, all right, I want to do this. I want to make this trade. I want to trade this, or this guy, pick up this guy. Like, oh, do you think that's going to work out? Or I want to restructure this guy's contract, free up some cap money, so that way I can go sign this guy. Well, do you really want to do that? Someone that can give him some checks and balances. Ted Phillips doesn't know anything. Ted Phillips just go and check the numbers, make sure it all fits under the cap, make sure we can, in terms of the budget and all that stuff. He's not going to tell him, hey, you know what? I don't think this guy's going to fit in our 3-4 scheme, as nicely as, say, player B, for example. That's the kind of football operations guy you need, especially for a young GM who's on his first job, right? He's given quote unquote the keys to the franchise in terms of football operations to go ahead and hire and fire and bring in players as he chooses. That to me is part of where the problem starts at. And now we talked about here, they're going to go and they're going to go get their quarterback. They're going to go either in the draft and trade assets, or they're going to create cap flexibility by restructuring contracts, locking themselves down in the future. But heck, if they don't win this year, they're gone next year. So they don't give a crap about what the future cap looks like in 2022, 2023, as long as they get the player they want this year and they can get a winning record, make the playoffs, and get contract extensions.
Yeah, and save their jobs. Exactly. We've got a lot of activity in the chat room, and I'd like to address some of the things that are going on there. But first, before we do that, I want to ask you guys this question, because this is a part of what the people in the chat room are chatting about. And that is, let's rewind history and say, instead of Ryan Pace drafting Mitch Trubisky, and let's say he drafts Deshaun Watson instead, would this team still be an 8-8 team? And I think that's a good question, because look at the record of the Texans. They clearly, even with a number one quarterback who is a promising quarterback, Deshaun Watson, and considered one of the best left tackles in football. We have what is considered one of the worst. I personally don't feel that way, but they have one of the best left tackles, Laramie Tunsil, and yet they have a worse team than the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears beat them. So what are your thoughts? I'd like the two of you to discuss. Rewind history, we draft Deshaun Watson, and then all the other same players have been acquired, the Darnell Mooneys and blah, blah, blah. What are your thoughts? Is this a better team, a worse team, or what?
Do you want to go, Neil? Should I take it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Danny, I think the first thing that we talked about when we started the show back up in August, or was it September, whenever it was, show number one with the both of us on it. The first thing that we agreed about was that we both would have taken Deshaun Watson.
Right.
With that pick.
Right.
And I think that, if you have a confident signal caller back there that's able to complete passes, able to run an offense, that's able to make checks and audibles, we have a guy that's a hell of a lot more functional, and you won't need nearly as much of tutelage, nearly as much of development as Mitchell Trubisky needed. You don't take developmental guys with a second pick in the draft, no matter how high their ceiling may be. You don't take developmental guys with pick number 2. Deshaun Watson has proved it time and time again for years at Clemson. He won games. He beat Alabama. He's got a ring. He doesn't need to prove anything. There's no development there. And he goes to the Houston Texans and spends years getting his ass whooped with an inefficient offensive line. That's a hell of a lot worse than what we've experienced here in Chicago. I mean, I think that we would have been in a world of a different place had we taken Deshaun Watson with that second pick.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, first of all, Deshaun Watson plays on a team that's got no defense. All right, he won a playoff game last year, if I'm not mistaken. This team made the playoffs and won a playoff game last season. And I think he made the playoffs the year before as well. So I think he's made the playoffs. This is the only year he hasn't made the playoffs. And he's a guy that plays in the AFC. First of all, the AFC is a tougher overall conference, in my opinion. You come here with this type of defense that the Bears have the last 2 or 3 seasons with Mitch Trubisky starting. You have a Deshaun Watson that's going to give you the playmaking ability on offense. I mean, look at his number one receiver was taken away from him. What did he do? He went ahead and he put up almost MVP numbers. All right, with guys like Brandon Cooks and Randall Cobb and David Johnson in the backfield, substandard, in terms of offensive skill players. It's not like he's got a shit ton of skill players on the outside that he's making plays with here. So you put Deshaun Watson on this team. If Ryan Pace drafted him instead of Mitch Trubisky, this press conference isn't happening. This is just a normal end of the season press conference with the head coach and the general manager, and we're moving on to next season and see how we can improve this team. So especially with the defense the Bears had, imagine going to that season with Fangio here, his last season with Deshaun Watson as your quarterback instead of Mitchell Trubisky. You guys barely scoring 13, 15 points in the playoff game against the Phillies, against the Eagles.
We're not relying on Cody Parkey to win the game.
Right. You don't even give a shit about Cody Parkey at that point because you have Deshaun Watson going to win the game for you. So this is a whole different storyline if he makes that, or he picks Watson or Mahomes for that matter. Either one of those quarterbacks over Trubisky, and we're talking about a whole different scenario here.
We've got a good question here. Let me find it. Let's see. It was during the press conference, where the hell did it run to? Here it is. Could you guys discuss, agree or disagree that Ted Phillips and George McCaskey might have let on during the 2015 through 2017 season that there wasn't a whole lot of collaboration in scouting, and therefore that's how you ended up with Mitch? And I think you guys kind of touched on that. Yeah. I mean, they didn't share the news with John Fox, who wanted Deshaun Watson. So
right.
This was a kind of a Ryan Pace only decision, or maybe him and a couple of other guys, right?
Right. So the way I took it was Ryan Pace didn't trust his coaching staff. John Fox, defensive, coordinator, has defensive background. Dow Loggins that had replaced Adam Gase, who had left to join get the whole head coach job with the Dolphins. Mm-hmm. And so he didn't trust these guys to be able to decipher and pick the quarterback that was going to make a difference. And he went, like I said earlier, full Columbo mode, hiding in bushes and making secret reservations at restaurants, to get his guy. But yet all along, John Fox, if the rumors are true, he would have ended up preferring them trade or draft Deshaun Watson. He would have been the right guy. So maybe he should have listened to his head coach at the time and pick the right quarterback, or the better quarterback, I should say. So yeah, it just got the feeling now. He kind of said it in that press conference on yesterday where he said that, with Matt Nagy, with Bill Lazor, with John DeFilippo, he's got, this is going to be the first time that they're going to be picking their quarterback together, Matt and Ryan. And I think these are guys are going to go in there. They're going to find their quarterback. And like I said, I assume, and I don't know, Neil, what you think. I think that they're going to identify a kid in the draft, and I think they're going to trade up and give up, hell and high water go to get the number 2 or number 4 pick, whatever pick is available, to try and get that quarterback. Because I think getting a veteran right now, unless it's a veteran that gets cut. But then again, if a veteran that gets cut, I mean, cap space is low. Do you want a veteran to get cut? Usually is because the veteran underperformed, or he's got too high of a contract. So I'm not sure, but I think they're going to go and identify a young quarterback, go draft them high. I think that'll be the quarterback of the future. Yeah,
they need to go out and get a dude. There is no more stopgaps. They have it's a shit or get off the pot situation now. We have 1 year where these 2 guys are basically a shit or get off the pot situation. It's what it is, and they have to go out and get a dude. They're not going to go out and get Marcus Mariota or Jacoby Brissett. All due respect to both those guys, because I like them a lot. I think they're talented. I think they've both been in their own garbage situations, where they're put into roles that they probably were not ready yet, or didn't have enough support around them, or whatever. But for like 2 guys, I thought, well, maybe if they had 2 years left, they could get this guy and give the draft pick some time to go ahead and learn and develop, or whatever the case. No, we first round, get a dude. That's all you got right now. Get a dude. Second round, get your right tackle, solidify your offensive line, work from there. I think that's their only saving grace right now, is to get this offense in a functioning, respectable position, so that they can remove that burden off of their shoulders, because that is the one thing that they're taking the most heat on, especially for somebody like Matt Nagy, who was brought in to be a quote unquote offensive guru.
Well, another thing about a young quarterback, getting a drafted quarterback, then you buy you some time, right? Be like, hey, look, George, Ted, look, I got this young quarterback. Show some promise, show some improvement. We just need a couple more seasons for him to develop under Matt's system and the tutelage of John DeFilippo and Bill Lazor. So you buy yourself some more time by doing that. You go to a veteran route, they're going to expect immediate impact next season. 10, 11, 11 wins, win a division, whatever, playoff for sure. That's what they're going to expect. You get yourself a young quarterback, you buy yourself a little bit more time there. But then downside on that, though, downside on that real quick is if you draft a quarterback, all right, so you give up future draft picks, get a quarterback, and then they have a shitty season, they get fired, and now you have a new regime with this quarterback now that they didn't draft, and now you give up assets to get this quarterback. So it could work kind of both ways here. That's the thing is kind of concerning for me, is how much he's going to give up to go get this quarterback, and is he going to be here to fulfill this quarterback's potential, seeing how he develops. And if not, if they're gone, the new regime comes in, are we then blowing everything back up again? And now we lost capital, draft capital, and all that stuff. So it's very hard to do this right now.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Lots of people want us to talk about the culture of the team, that topic of the culture. And Danny had me pull that Mitchell Trubisky soundbite after the loss to the New Orleans Saints, where towards the tail end when he was talking about what went wrong and so forth, he brought up, he volunteered the topic of culture. Let's listen to it. Now there's some background noise towards the end when he brings it up, so listen closely.
It always comes down to the basics at the end of the day. Are we doing good on third down? And tonight we were not. Were we efficient on first and second down? Tonight we were not. So we were in third and longs, and it wasn't very manageable. And they're putting us in tough positions, and we just didn't execute. So we shot ourselves in the foot a lot. I didn't think we played very smart tonight with the penalties, and it was just sloppy. So, like I said, there's a lot of things that we need to do better, a lot of things that need to change, and a lot of it is the culture and what we accept and what we don't.
The culture and what we accept and what we don't. Go ahead, Danny.
When I heard that after the game, I said, all right, Trubisky now is throwing Matt Nagy and that coaching staff under the bus. He feels like they throw him under the bus for this season, right, in the middle of the season, and now he's throwing them back under the bus because he says the culture of this team, what we accept and what we don't accept, that falls squarely on the shoulders of the head coach.
I thought you were going to rant on that even more, brother. Sorry. Where do you go?
We're going to chime in here because Ted Phillips says they have a great winning culture. They have a great culture developed under Matt Nagy. But yet your starting quarterback is telling you the culture needs to change. And that's one of the things that he pointed out that needs to be changed and needs to be better. So you have a player here throwing the coach and the coach saying under the bus, and you have a CEO saying, hey, we have a great culture. So which one is it?
Right. Exactly. So you keep Javon Wims in the roster after he has that nasty, ugly fight against Chauncey Gardner Johnson. And he serves his 2-game suspension, and then you bring him back, and because of injury, Javon Wims ends up playing an important role in the offense. And he drops that major pass in the first quarter that could have given the Chicago Bears some momentum and might have, who knows, maybe changed the game. Probably not, but at least provided some good momentum. So is Mitch saying, hey, if we would have got rid of this guy and brought in some veteran, some guy who we could rely on, some guy who has better hands, some guy who pays attention more, some guy who wouldn't have dropped that pass, maybe the culture that it would have positively affected the culture, and you wouldn't have Anthony Miller then, because clearly Javon Wims and Anthony Miller were talking a lot about this defensive back from the Saints. So I think that's what True was referring to, and for very good reason. Matt Nagy is considered a player's coach, and sometimes players' coaches allow players to get away with murder.
Soft.
I'm sorry. Go, Neil. You go, and I'll follow up after you.
Oh no, I just want to say the word soft. That's all. That's all I had.
So that's a good point that he lets players get away with things, veteran players, because he's a player's coach. But I think another thing that Trubisky was hitting on was it took how long for Matt Nagy to finally realize that he's got this quarterback can't fit his offense. He's going to have to adjust his offense and play to the strengths of the quarterback, using the rollouts, getting him out of the pocket. And all along during those weeks, Trubisky kept saying that, he had been mentioning this to the coaching staff, but yet it was never really put into the game plan. And finally it happened. They made the change, and lo and behold, they won 3 games in a row. I think that was another thing where he says, and first a culture, that he wants to be able to talk to his coach and say, hey, this is what I want. And he wants the coach to listen to the player and work with the player. The other thing was, we talked about the offensive line. The offensive line looked like crap for 12 weeks. And then finally they made this change where they made the combination where they changed, Mustafa at center, Whitehair at left guard, and Alex Barrs at right guard, kicked the Fetty out to right tackle. Did you notice in the press conference, Ryan Pace said that him and Matt Nagy would sit every week on the whiteboard and put these combinations together. So what week did it finally hit, or who told him, hey, try this lineup here? Stop, putting Rashard Carr out there at guard, getting us killed. Our quarterbacks are getting killed. We stop putting these rookies out there. Let's go with this combination here and let's see how it works. And so if it was Matt Nagy came up with that combination, if it was Juan Castillo, the offensive line coach, came up with that combination, it sounded like Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy were at the whiteboard putting things together. So, maybe just, come to conclusions that could put players in the best position to succeed and help the football team. I think that's another thing, a part of the culture where, you know what, don't be, you know, always dragging behind, always being stubborn in terms of, no, this is going to be my way. This is my team. This is how I'm going to coach it. This type of offense I'm going to run. These are kind of players are going to be out there. You know, be flexible. Listen to your players. Be adjustable. You know, the Patriots are very very good at adjusting their game plans week to week. You know, this week, especially when Tom Brady was there. This week, are we going to be a throwing team? This week, we're going to be a running team because this is the weakness of the opponent we're playing on defense. You know, you got to be flexible like that. And I think that also was what Trubisky was kind of referring to in terms of culture.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing about culture too is that I don't want to hear about great culture when you have all the undisciplined garbage going on the field that we had going on this year. When you have Javon Wims taking a closed fist to a dude wearing a helmet, I've been saying since the dawn of day, that is the stupidest, most dumbest, most ridiculous thing I've ever seen a player do on a field. I don't know how retarded you have to, excuse me, again, excuse my language, but I don't know how dumb you have to be to go in and take a closed fist to a dude wearing a helmet. And it happened twice. It happened with Javon Wims. And then Anthony Miller did it on Sunday. Again, after he was being reminded about how Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, he's kind of a shit talker. It was apparently Mike Furry had a whole 15-minute, session about it during practice. At a time when your time is so valuable that it is regulated by the NFL, how much time you can spend with your athletes. He spent 15 minutes talking about how Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's got a mouth and he's always talking. And he had Javon Wims taking a closed fist, and he had Anthony Miller taking a closed fist. Both those two should be cut immediately. They should have been cut at halftime of last week's game after that second incident. And then down 21-3, down 3 scores. You have Akeem Hicks, who I also have a lot of respect for as far as like a great dude. You have Akeem Hicks talking shit down 21-3. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no discipline on this team. Don't tell me about culture when you have zero discipline. And to the point of players coaches generally let dudes get away with stuff. They also have a long leash, which allows those players to just go far and beyond what they would be doing otherwise in an organization that has their shit together. Mm-hmm. And that's why you have these instances where guys just fly off the rails and do stupid stuff and put us in the holes and end up losing games for us and embarrassing the organization. Mm-hmm. And during the background process, when scouts come into my office, when I was at Mississippi State, scouts come to my office. Hey, tell us about his temperament. Tell us about his character. Tell us about this, that, and the other thing. That stuff matters. They don't want dudes go ahead and punching guys with wearing helmets and talking shit in inopportune situations. And even worse, and thankfully we didn't have this year, embarrassing the team off. Oh, wait a minute. No, that's right. We had a guy have sexual assault in South Carolina. I forgot about that. Mario Edwards Jr. went ahead and did that. So how deep does this go? Like how much further do we have to go on this topic? Culture.
I got to tell you, a lot of people in the chat room are saying, trade Anthony Miller, but I think Anthony Miller's trade value now is that you package Miller and a 6th-round draft pick, and you might be able to get a 6th-round draft pick a little higher in the draft. His trade value is
it's got no value right now.
Zero. I mean, it's not very much. You might be able to move up around packaging him with a draft pick. You might be able to move up around. I don't think that a lot of teams are anxious to sign Anthony Miller. There are teams that like his talent and his potential, but they're going to know that this guy, he doesn't listen. He's an undisciplined player and could perhaps be a locker room nuisance. And so I just don't see there being a lot of value. There's always a head coach that's going to fall in love with him and so forth. And we'll see if that potentially happens. But if you're talking trade, you're talking, a 7th, 6th-round draft pick, something like that.
If that, yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys, here's what we're going to do. We're getting a lot of questions about who should be the defensive coordinator now that Chuck Pagano has retired. Yeah. Yes. Hey.
We called it. Remember? Before the Packers game, we said that Chuck Pagano's coaching for this game. He's coaching for his job. And
that's right. That's right. Hey, Chuck, come on in here. We're throwing you a retirement party. What are you talking about? I'm not retired. Yes, you are.
Did you guys catch that one comment that Matt Nagy made Like the only comment that I wrote down that was worth a damn at all that I thought he made that was extremely interesting was when he was talking about Chuck, and of course he gives his whole speech about how Chuck's amazing. After that, he goes, "I didn't know Chuck at all."
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's right. I don't understand how you hire somebody to run your defense that you don't even know.
That's right. You had 2 defensive assistants who are now very successful as defensive coordinators. You had Brandon Staley, who is now an excellent defensive coordinator for the Rams
and a head coaching candidate.
And a head coaching candidate, and Ed Donatelli, Donatelli, the defensive backs coach, who was he and Vic Fangio devised all of these defensive back schemes that were giving offenses so much trouble. And Eddie Jackson had his best season under Ed Donatelli, but you're going to let him go away. You're not going to offer him the defensive coordinator position. You're not going to, sway him with a nice fat contract. You're going to bring in a guy that you never met before, a guy that coached 1 season as a defensive coordinator, and that was with the Ravens when they were stacked with talent. Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, etc., etc. What are you doing here? This is just madness.
And that's that guy. I want Ed Donatello to succeed Vic Fangio. And I remember he was in a running. And when as soon as they gave Pagano the job, Donatello ended up going to Denver to follow with Vic Fangio. So yeah, that was I think it was a mistake. And if you notice, the defensive back play, especially Eddie Jackson, his play has consistently dropped since Donatello and Fangio left. So I think that was one of the huge mistakes that Nagy made early on.
All right. Like I said a minute ago, we are going to talk about the defense. We're going to evaluate the defense for 2020. And then that way in future shows, when we're evaluating prospects, we can put values on these guys and know, well, we really need this position player because this position group underperformed, or we can find somebody that will complement an Eddie Jackson, perhaps find another Adrian Amos. So, but before we do that, the Barfly Tailgate Show and Ryan Badgley and Bobby Phlean, they've been doing a great job, especially Ryan with our social outreach programs. And Ryan was able to agree on a deal with the Allen Robinson's Within Reach Foundation. And because of all of our efforts here at the Bears Barroom, we raised thousands of dollars for Allen Robinson's Within Reach Foundation. So, Bobby and Ryan interviewed the managing director, I believe is her title, of Allen Robinson's Within Reach Foundation, and we wanted to share that with you here. It's about 13-14 minutes long, so please give it a whirl here. And then when we return, Niel, Danny, and I will talk about the Chicago Bears defense. Okay, here we go.
All right, guys, little special guest that we have on the show today. This is, something that the Barfly Tailgate Show has been dedicated to, and we're honored to have her join us today. We have Mrs. Madeline Goodman from the Allen Robinson Within Reach Foundation. She's actually the managing director of the Within Reach Foundation. It's been a pleasant partnership with the Barfly Tailgate Show. We love having her. We love having, being involved with everybody. Madeline, how you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be on the show. We love working with you guys. So
absolutely.
Well, we love working with you, Madeline, and it's an honor for us to be able to help you guys and the foundation just extend, your reach to, wherever. If it's people watching our show in Dubai or England, there's so many people, and for those folks to give back, it's truly a blessing. There may be some new folks who are just kind of learning about Allen's foundation, and I was kind of hoping you could give them a little bit of insight and a little bit of background on the foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. So Allen technically started this foundation back when he was with the Jaguars, and then when he moved to the Bears in 2018, he brought the foundation with him and has been so dedicated and so excited to do work in Chicago. The Within Reach Foundation is dedicated solely to providing educational resources to inner city Chicago students or low income students and families that kind of need more support or more resources to put success within reach for them.
And this year, 2020, or this past year, because we're now in 2021, has been a year like no other. I know it firsthand. I'm a member of my local United Way. And this, I mean, it's just been a struggle for every foundation trying to raise funds. What has it been like for not only you guys at the foundation, Alan as well? He's had to change a lot of programs that you guys are working on with him in order to keep things, you know, kind of running like they should be.
Yeah, absolutely. 2020 is definitely crazy for everyone. And we are definitely hoping for a less crazy 2021. But 2020, so you guys kind of are aware the two major programs that Alan had kind of been working on or launching with his foundation were our Reach for Our Book Rooms. So those Reach for Our Book Rooms usually would go into Boys and Girls Clubs or schools in Chicago just to kind of renovate spaces and provide kind of thousands of books for students to be able to have access to them. And then the other one was obviously Operation Elf, which was one of his favorites. There's actually a photo behind me. I don't know if you can see it, where he is kind of getting to work with these students and take them on a shopping spree, all of that fun stuff. Obviously with 2020, we've all barely seen Alan, so he's not really been able to kind of be around the community. None of us have, and especially in cities like Chicago, students haven't been in school. So It was kind of hard for us to kind of figure out how we can really make an impact. And what we kind of saw very early on in 2020 was that one of the major problems that we were seeing with students and their families was lack of access to meals and food. And so whether that's students who were only getting a meal at school and then no longer had access to that because they weren't in school anymore, or just because, you know, so many layoffs and so many people losing their income with 2020, we really felt like that was an area that fit within his foundation and how we could still support. And so back in March, we launched his 12K for 12 campaign, which you guys were a huge part of. And ended up just killing it, crushing out of the water. We had outpouring of support from across the country, from his teammates, Trubisky and Leno, both donated to the campaign themselves based off of their jersey numbers. And so we ended up raising like close to $60,000. Yeah, it was insanity. It was like 96,000 pounds of food that we were able to donate through the Greater Chicago Food Depository for students and families in Chicago. So it was huge. It was huge. We obviously, when we initially launched it, we're just hoping to match Alan's 12K that he donated personally, which is awesome. That's just the kind of person that he is. It crushed out of the water. And because of that, have actually decided to incorporate hunger permanently into Alan's foundation pillar. So you guys will kind of get to see that moving forward in 2021, more to come on that. But that's something that isn't going anywhere. So
that's awesome, Madeline. I mean, the fact that, you know, it's funny, like I sit here and I know that, you know, we're tweeting and we're talking about it on our shows, but then to hear, you know, from you that that's something that we had a hand in. So many people that follow Alan and the network that had a hand in, that's spectacular.
It's crazy. When you think about like the reach that it had nationally, like when it was happening, I was one of my big things that I was looking at was like cities. And I don't think there was a state that was missed. Like when it was all said and done. Bears fans are everywhere. But yeah, it was crazy. So,
yeah, absolutely. Now I know I've told you guys before, and we told Alan when he was on the show. My sister is actually a Chicago public school teacher. So I'm in the military. I haven't been back. I'm only back in Chicago when I can. But she's a Chicago public school teacher, and that's like the meal thing is definitely something that's, you know, plays a big part and is of great assistance to them. And now, you know, with them being out of school and all that, trying to trying to keep up, you know, an education level in that. Now, if, you know, and I hate to bring up the bad news, right? But there's a potential that Allen isn't with the Bears next year. How does the Within Reach Foundation, and how does all this carry on if something was to happen, you know, where they don't franchise tag him or he's not in Chicago next year? What changes for the Within Reach Foundation at that point?
Yeah, so obviously, regardless, and you've heard him say it, and it's not just talk, he really means it. Allen, regardless, is very dedicated to the Chicago community. He knows that they've really embraced him and love him, and he's embraced them and loves them right back. And so no matter whatever money funds that we've raised in Chicago, they will absolutely stay in Chicago. That doesn't change. The impact there doesn't change. We actually have one more Reach for a Book room, regardless, that is promised, that will launch no matter where Allen is. Hopefully, you know, we're able to kind of get him in person to the launch, but obviously with COVID, you just never know. But regardless, that will at least open up at some point whenever we're kind of able to get through the COVID restrictions and make that happen. And then again, while he's still in Chicago, any funds there will stay in Chicago. If Allen ends up somewhere else, obviously the Within Reach Foundation will go with him. That's something, his foundation, that he just is very, he's not parting with it. We're not going anywhere. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Why would you? It's 100%. And you know, we'll be, I mean, either way, I mean, I'll still be donating. We'll still be right there with you. Yep. I just wanted to ensure that, you know, that everybody listening to the show and the Chicago fans know that that everything that, you know, he's doing for Chicago stays in Chicago, and that, you know, the character of the player that we're hopefully keeping, and hopefully is staying in Chicago for a long time to come. But, you know, us as fans, we know how that organization is currently running, and I'll just leave it at that for right now.
I'm kind of going to throw you a curveball, Madeline, because I don't want to skip over a Night Within Reach event, because I feel like, you know, Bobby and I were actually able to watch, and, you know, just seeing and talking to yourself and Austin about how successful it was, being that the first time it was ever virtual and all that. How was that for you guys, being a virtual event and still having as much success as you had with it?
It was honestly, it was almost as crazy as the Hunger campaign, right? Like every new thing in 2020 kind of, even when you thought you'd seen it all, it kind of brings this new, like, oh, wow, like, nope, we're still doing it. It's still happening. So it was awesome. You know, it's kind of just a testimony, I think, again, to like how people receive Allen, and the person that he is, and the impact that the foundation is having, and the supporters that we have, honestly. I can't say enough about that. I think having it virtual obviously has its pros and cons. Yes, virtual, super, super successful. It was actually the first one that our company had really done. So it was the first time that I'd really seen it. I was actually with Allen. So I was with Allen and his sister, kind of wherever we were recording in his house. And so, and streaming. And so that was really an interesting dynamic, because, you know, I'm on the phone with Austin and, you know, some of my other staff who are in the studio, just trying to make sure that we're timing everything correctly and making sure Allen's ready to go, and camera on, camera off, and mute, unmute, you know, our daily lives on Zoom calls these days. But it really was interesting. And there are parts of obviously the virtual event that Allen he loved. And it kind of gave us these ideas that we're kind of going to be able to use moving forward. The idea of having like a virtual aspect, even when we're able to have an in-person event, I don't think is going anywhere. You'll have people that still want to watch from home, and that's great. And then we're also able to incorporate people on a way more national level than just hosting only the in-person event. And that goes for like speakers as well, or videos, or people watching. It just there's more of a reach for us to include that virtual component. So again, it was awesome. It gave us kind of some ideas on what works, what doesn't work, and how we can kind of make our in-person events better moving forward. So yeah,
exactly. And then like what this whole new world could who knows, right? I mean, if we would have invested in Zoom back in January, I mean, we could have all been doing something right now. So I know we're a little short on time, but let's talk about Allen's teammate of the week.
Yes.
And then we'll go ahead and provide all the information to everybody that's watching and where they can go to donate or what they can do. But let us know what Allen's teammate of the week is and kind of kick it for everybody that's listening.
Sure. So Allen's teammate of the week was a campaign that we decided to launch in January. We were super, super inspired. Our office, we technically were closed down over the holidays, kind of, to unplug, but I was seeing all of these donations flowing in, and I was like, where is this coming from? I'm looking on our socials. I haven't seen anything. And I'm like, I'm trying to figure out where, but I'm trying to figure out where everything's coming from. And like, honestly, your guys' is one of the first social media that I go to look at. I'm like, okay, what did they post? Like I was looking everywhere. And what we found is that Adam Schefter had retweeted a guy who shared a bunch of NFL player foundations. And basically encouraged people to donate if these guys had helped them win their fantasy leagues or win some money in their fantasy leagues. And people took off on that. And so we were seeing kind of an outpouring of that here and there. And then I think just end of the year promotion and people really trying to get behind the guy. And so we were so inspired by that, decided to kind of launch this campaign in January where we recognize these supporters, right? So each Friday in January, we are kind of highlighting a new teammate of the week. We select them. There's no donation amount necessary, just any amount to be entered. Right. And then we highlight them all over our foundation socials. We tag Allen, we tag, a bunch of media people. And each of these winners, we're asking kind of their why. So you're going to get to kind of see not just them in their Bears gear or whatever, but also hear a little bit about why they chose, kind of the Within Reach Foundation, which was actually pretty inspiring for me too, just to see like the way that people kind of receive Allen and the foundation in that capacity. So anyone can donate. See yourself featured on our socials. Allen, I promise, is watching. He's actually picking the people. I give him kind of the list, and then he picks the people. So,
That's a great program. You already had your first winner. Shay was the first winner. I know. I retweeted it. We retweeted it from the Barfly Tailgate account. That's huge for him. Seems like a great person, and I love the fact that he picked this foundation to donate to. This has been something for us that, I mean, yes, we're obviously Chicago Bears fans and Allen Robinson fans, but as both of us who contribute in our local communities, and yourself, I'm sure as well, it's all about giving back. And when you can find an organization that's like Allen's, that really is trying to do everything they can to give back, it's such an honor for us to be able to partner with you guys and help spread all the positivity that you guys are trying to spread. And Allen himself and Madeline, I can't thank you enough, Austin enough, Allen enough for all the time that you've given to us. Coming on the shows, Allen signing the footballs for us to give away, which we have one more to give away that we'll be looking to do probably on this Sunday's show. And you guys have been excellent, and we look forward to continuing to help the Within Reach Foundation indefinitely. And just thank you to you guys for partnering up with us.
Just know the appreciation is so mutual. We talk about it all the time. Allen is aware. Even this year, you guys bringing on such a huge corporate sponsor for us as well, that major donation. I mean, it's just, we can't thank you enough. Again, that is kind of where this campaign gets its roots, is to be able to recognize our partners and our supporters. You guys are huge in that. You guys have been huge in spreading the word. And so we really appreciate it. I know you've got one more signed football. If you get selected as a teammate of the week, you also get a signed football. So we're ready. We're ready.
Awesome. Well, Madeline, we want to thank you for your time, for everything you do for the Within Reach Foundation. And, and just just giving back to the community and bringing everything to light and helping everybody out. Thanks so much for joining us. We look forward to many more years in Chicago. We're praying that it stays within reach. And hopefully Alan's here for the long term. But as Ryan said, no matter what, we'll still be right alongside you guys. We appreciate everything, and thanks for joining the show.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
All right. My thanks to Ryan Badgley and Bob Phlean for doing that interview. And just as a personal note, when I was a kid growing up, I had, unfortunately, a dysfunctional family. And it was because of the grace of organizations similar to the Within Reach that helped me get through school and supported me in so many different ways that I was able to achieve my dreams of working in broadcast TV here in Chicago, of traveling around the world and so forth. If I didn't have that foundation when I was a kid, there's no telling, I'd be on a gutter somewhere doing blow or something like that. So the Allen Robinson's Within Reach Foundation is a perfect example of an organization that goes out and tries to help kids who are facing these challenges and put their goals within reach. So I know charitable dollars are really, really tight for all of us. But if you've got a few extra bucks, visit the AllenRobinson12.org and see what you can do to help out. And sometimes they need help with volunteer services and so forth. Just visit the website and perhaps there's a way that you can help out. And again, many thanks to Madeline for being on the show, and many thanks to Ryan and Bobby for organizing that whole effort. All right, guys, it is time to get back to Chicago Bears football. We got to talk about this defense. We've got to assess things. But right now, let's talk about this open defensive coordinator position. And do you have any thoughts on who could potentially be a replacement? Neil, let me start with you. Oh, I'm sorry, Neil. I had you muted, and I can hear you now.
I was just saying, everybody wants to talk about Jay Rodgers, which, I mean, if that's the go-to, let's go ahead and check that out, see where it goes. Mm-hmm. I haven't really gotten far enough into looking at, who might be available right now, who might be good fits, whatever the case may be. I was still kind of, fanning the fumes from yesterday's press conference. Mm-hmm. But, I think that, right before we went to Madeline and Bobby and Badge, the thing that I touched on was I thought it was appalling that we had a defensive coordinator hired a couple years ago that Matt Nagy didn't even know. I don't understand how that happens, and especially in a year where, again, it's a crap or get off the pot kind of year. Matt Nagy needs to go ahead and bring in a guy that number one, he trusts, number two, he knows. And then it pretty much is a guy that's going to be a rock star. That's going to, call a defense. That's going to win some games. When we had Vic Fangio, obviously we were rocking and rolling. Hopefully we have an offense that gets it together next year. We have a defense that gets it rocking and rolling. We get back to winning ways. I think that's the goal, is to at least get a guy that Matt Nagy knows and has a relationship with. Let's just go ahead and start there. But if Jay Rodgers is going to be the guy, let's start there and work backwards, right?
Yeah, Danny, would you agree that Jay Rodgers deserves the very first interview? I, for instance, always love to hire from within the organization because they know the system, they know the culture. Speaking of culture, but those should be the very first people you interview. So Jay Rodgers, you like that name?
Yeah, Jay Rodgers is getting a lot of momentum. He's a highly respected defensive line coach around the league. I've heard, it's tough that if Brandon Staley, we talked about him, with the Rams going over there, and he's getting some head coaching opportunities, some interviews, and he, I guess, part of his staff, he's named Jay Rodgers as his potential defensive coordinator. So if the Bears don't make him defensive coordinator, there's a potential if Staley gets a job that he might go with his staff there and be defensive coordinator. So he's definitely a guy that I would look at. Brad Biggs did a great job in the local paper here, identifying some names, and another guy on staff that I had forgotten about was is a safeties coach, Sean Desai, DES. I think that's how he pronounces it, Desai. He's a guy that's a safeties coach. He's one guy that actually Vic Fangio tried to pluck away from the Bears. We talked about Donatel. Obviously, Donatel was out of contract, so he was just able to go ahead and sign him on to Denver. But he was trying to get the Desai from the Bears, but the Bears wouldn't give him permission to go ahead and talk to him. So he's a guy that apparently might know the scheme, might know the system, kind of similar to Staley if you want to go, young blood here. But a name. So those are two names inside the organization that they've talked about. A name that caught my mind. I forgot this guy was out of the league. Was James Batcher. He is the former Arizona Cardinals defensive coordinator, former Giants defensive coordinator under Pat Shurmur. He has a connection with Nagy, and it's a weird one. So he was a linebackers coach with Pagano and with the Colts, and then he went to Arizona. Was a linebackers coach there, and then was elevated defensive coordinator, and that's when Bruce Arians had all that success and all that stuff. So when Arians left, Batcher left, and then he went to the Giants with Pat Shurmur. But obviously, Pat Shurmur lasted 2 seasons with the Giants. The Giants, staff or talent on defense wasn't up to par, and he was let go. So I think Batcher is a guy that to keep an eye on if you're going to go outside the organization. Now, the one thing here we talked about in terms of the Bears and their salary cap, they're going to be up against a cap. Whether the cap number, we don't know what it's going to be. It's probably going to be 175, maybe a little bit more. Who knows? But either way, they're going to be up against a cap. So you cannot really go out and get someone that's going to come in and run a 4-3 scheme, for example. You can't go out there and because this personnel is designed for a 3-4 system. So whoever you're going to bring in here is going to have to run a 3-4 system. Obviously, Jay Rogers would run a 3-4 system, we presume, and also the other guy, the Desai on the staff currently would run a 3-4. And Batcher was also a 3-4 coach. So those are the 3 guys that I would keep an eye on. But I think if I had to put my money on anybody, I think Jay Rogers might be the early candidate to get the promotion.
But don't you think that with Robert Quinn having more success in his career as a 4-3 down defensive lineman, that you shouldn't explore the possibility of interviewing a defensive coordinator who can get the most out of that personnel and the most out of Robert Quinn, this high investment that you have, and look at a 4-3? Or do you just find somebody who runs a 3-4 and does a better job of utilizing Quinn's skills? That's kind of, to me, it's kind of a quandary.
Well, for me, it's with now 3-4, 4-3. A lot of times when you run certain formations, you can always be a hybrid defense. You could run you could run 4 down linemen out there, and you can have Robert Quinn with his hand in the ground, and you can come back out in certain packages in certain scenarios and have three down guys with Robert Quinn and Mack on the outside, standing up in a 2-point stance. So I think a hybrid system might be the best way to do it, to kind of take advantage of Quinn's skill set, in which he seems to excel with his hand on the ground. So I think that's the way to go. The only thing is if you're going to go ahead and make this a 4-3 team, you're talking about now getting, probably, getting multiple players. Some of these players that are on this, team might not fit. Right. So that's the thing is, and then up against the cap with a make or break it kind of year, do you really want to be fiddling around with something like that? So that's why I assume that whoever they're going to bring, they're probably going to keep the same 3-4 system.
I think honestly, if you're going to go 4 down, you're going to go nickel base. You're going to keep two middle linebackers. You're going to bring in nickel as your base. As your 5 DB scheme, because even with the way that football has trended in the NFL over the past handful of years, you want the extra DB on the field anyways, right? So if you want to go ahead and put Robert Quinn with his hand in the dirt, like he has been for most of his career, especially the times when he has actually been productive, keep Roquan and whoever's going to replace Dane Trevathan in the middle, add your nickel as your base. That might be the way to go with that. In terms of being hybrid, that might be the way to go with that, instead of adding a third linebacker to the system.
And a lot of times the nickel that that 5th defensive back is a hybrid, a guy that can play linebacker / safety. This guy gets about a 6'3", 6'4" safety that can play some linebacker that can be comfortable up in the box as well. So that's a good point. If you want to go for a down lineman, you could play 2 linebackers with Roquan and whoever else is going to be. I'm assuming Trevathan will be back. I'm not sure his contract status, but whoever the 2 linebackers will be, and then you have the 5 DBs.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of names that I wanted to bring up and also kind of address the overall topic. Yesterday we had on JJ Stankovitz of NBC Sports Chicago on the Buffon 55 show, and he disagreed with John when John offered the opinion that the Bears should probably look at a young defensive coordinator or a defensive assistant like a Aaron Glenn or Gerald Alexander. Those two guys are defensive back coaches for the Saints and Dolphins respectively, who have had a lot of success and are being talked about as head coaching candidates, but perhaps they would want to do a year as a defensive coordinator if they don't get that head coaching job this year. Because the problem is there's going to be a lot of qualified candidates who are going to say, well, you guys may not be around in 2022. So why would I want to work there? And so the opinion, I think I'm expressing this correctly by JJ, is perhaps you should look at some of the older guys like the Wade Phillips, like the Terrell Austins. Mike North threw out the name Lovie Smith, and that immediately blasted the internet. But some of these guys, Marvin Lewis is another old guy. I personally don't prefer those older guys because Chuck Pagano is a perfect example. Although I saw you gesture when I mentioned the name Wade Phillips. Danny, what are your thoughts on Wade?
Yeah, I brought him up last week, or the last time we had a show, and I said, this is a guy that's out there not currently working for anybody, and you guys poo-pooed it.
I didn't poo-poo it.
Yeah, you're like, oh, Wade Phillips. But this guy, he's been out for a couple of seasons. I mean, whenever he goes in, he always turns the defense around. He has 2 or 3 good seasons, and then after that, you got to let go. But that's a guy I would not mind bringing him in. He also runs a 3-4 system similar to Fangio, in which he runs a 3-4, but it's a more of an aggressive upfield 3-4 as opposed to the traditional old, if you want to think Steelers 3-4, where you got the 3 down linemen or basically playing two-way gaps and stuff like that. They're kind of holding their blocks and just trying to create lanes for the linebacker. So Phillips also has an aggressive upfield where he lets his defensive lineman go ahead and hit upfield and pressure the quarterback, and doesn't use the blitz a lot, if I remember correctly, and he uses his front 7 guys to go ahead and create that pressure. So that's a guy that I wouldn't mind bringing in either.
Let me throw out the name Raheem Morris. Thoughts on Morris potentially coming as a DC?
So he was the intern coach for the Falcons, and before that he was a defensive coordinator. So
correct.
He's based in that Tampa, Lovie Smith kind of Tampa 2 defense, if I remember correctly. He comes from that tree. So yeah, I don't know if I want to go that way. But like I said, like some of the guys. Also, another guy we mentioned on the staff, I forgot to mention, was Ted Monaco. Or is it
Monachino? I think.
Yeah, Monachino. He was the defensive coordinator for the Colts for a couple seasons in Pagano's last couple of years. So he also has experience as calling defensive, being a defensive coordinator as well. So that's the 3 candidates we have so far internally, and then a couple of guys we have from outside the organization.
I like Steven's idea. You bring in Rex Ryan for comedy value.
That'd be hilarious.
Yeah, Rex Ryan said he hates Matt Nagy. It doesn't like Matt Nagy. Yeah, so that'd be.
You would see Rex do what his dad do, take a punch at his who did it? Was it that Rex or Buddy Ryan took a punch at his offensive coordinator? No, remember? He was head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, and he took a punch at Kevin Gilbride, I believe.
Yeah, it was with the Oilers. He was defensive coordinator, or was he head coach or defensive coordinator with the Oilers?
Okay, so yeah, it would be a blast to have Rex. If we know we're going to have a terrible season in 2021, why not bring Rex Ryan in and have him have a fight with Nagy on the sidelines every other week? It'd be good entertainment.
We're shooing for Hard Knocks and HBO. We're shooing.
Yeah, that's right.
Rex will be trying to get that job from Nagy as soon as he's hired.
That's right. Absolutely. All right, let's get serious here and talk about the needs of this team, evaluate the defense. I want to approach it a little bit differently than I did last week when we were talking about the offense. And let me start the conversation from this point of view. What is our biggest position need on defense? Is it the defensive line? Is it the linebacker position? Is it the edge linebacker position? Is it the cornerbacks? Is it the safeties? So I want to approach it that way, and just quickly add that I think there are definite needs throughout this team, but we have to prioritize things so that if you come to the draft and in the second or third round you've got great guys graded close to each other, then you're going to let position need dictate who you're going to pick. So, Danny, I'll start with you. From a position area, what do you think is the biggest need on this team?
For me, on defense, the biggest need right now is inside linebacker. I mean, we saw Roquan go down, and we brought up Manti Te'o off the practice squad, and he was starting pretty much for the Bears in a playoff game. So that kind of speaks to the depth behind both Roquan and Danny Trevathan. And Danny Trevathan has been a very good player for the Bears, but I think he's obviously on the downside of his career, and I think he's a guy that may or may not be on a roster next season. So I think the inside linebacker position, someone to either step in and start alongside Roquan, but even if you're going to keep Trevathan for another year, have some nice quality depth, because you can't be plugging guys off the practice squad, starting them in playoff games.
Yeah, I'm 100% on the same page. Inside linebacker has zero depth right now, and I think I mentioned that last show or the show before, and that's frightening. When you have Roquan go down, you're bringing dudes off the street to go ahead and start for your only playoff game you're going to have all year at inside linebacker. It's absolutely frightening. Trevathan's getting old. He's on the downside. Roquan's going to be the next in the great long line of linebackers we're going to have. He can and should retire a Bear. Outside of that, there's nothing that excites me at inside linebacker whatsoever. There's no depth. I think that's going to have to be probably pick number 3 this year. After quarterback, after offensive tackle, inside linebacker is probably going to be pick number 3. I would have to say that if inside linebackers is need number 1A is probably safety, because Gibson is basically just on a loan. You have Eddie Jackson, after he signed his big money deal, having just 2 completely garbage years. He's been average as the day has been long. And I mean, I know that, I know we talk all the time about how Eddie Jackson, he's not supposed to be a tackler. He's a ball hawk. Well, he can't tackle and also can't defend passes anymore either. So I think that the money has probably gotten to this dude's head, and he should probably stay a little bit more off Twitter and more in the playbook and more in practice. But we're either way, we're a far cry from where we were when we had Adrian Amos.
I'm sorry, go ahead, finish off your thought.
No, I was just saying, like when we had Amos and Jackson, I felt like, obviously Jackson had his best year and we had Adrian Amos alongside him, right?
Yep.
Jackson had his best year. And I don't know if you just attribute that to Eddie Jackson just trying to make some money, or if you attribute that to having a leader beside him that's been in the trenches, that has been a producer, that has kept Eddie Jackson's mind on right. And ever since then, he's had Clinton Dix and a dude that's been in nothing but dysfunctional organizations since he's been in the league. There's a little bit of a correlation there. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's strictly Adrian Amos or if it's just been dysfunction next to him. But there's clearly a disconnect. And if we get somebody back there that has some sense, that can pull this thing together in the back end, that could beat the quarterback of the defense, I would definitely be on board with that if it gets the back end of the defense together.
See, for me, safety is a priority, right? But I got to go inside linebacker first, and I got to go defensive line second. And meaning because right now, unless I'm wrong, the only 3 guys you have under contract in the defensive line are Akeem Hicks, who's going into his final year of his contract. So if he's going to say, hey, I want a new contract, we'll see how that goes. Bilal Nichols, who's also going into the final year of his rookie contract, and Eddie Goldman, who's coming off a year where he opted out. I think Brent Urban, John Jenkins, and Mario Edwards are all free agents. So, I mean, unless you're going to tell me you're going to bring back 2 of those 3 in some form or fashion, then you got some depth. That's fine. But until those 2 or 3 guys are back on the roster, defensive line is a bigger priority for me, because with safety, that's the next in line for me in terms of you need to bring someone in, whether it's a veteran free agent again on a 1-year contract, or you're going to go draft someone in the draft and pair up with Eddie Jackson. But typically with this defense, that front 7, that pressure up front is what gets you the quarterback to go ahead and hurry up his throw, change his launch angle, launch spot or whatnot, and create some pressure, and that allows the safeties to go ahead jump the play and make a play on the ball. I'm not saying it's not an important position, but I just think that up front, that defensive line, it's got to be, unless you're going to bring back Mario Edwards, which I'm all good for. You bring back Mario Edwards, you bring back Brent Urban as key backups, I'm good. Then we can go on to safety. But until 2 of those 3 guys are back on the roster, I'm concerned there.
That's a fair point. I'm kind of in the boat with you. I had D-line as a very close third. Obviously Hicks is the alpha. We all know that. The defense goes straight to hell when he's not in the game. Provided he stays healthy, he's arguably the MVP of that side of the ball. Roquan, very quick second. Bilal Nichols, he had a surprisingly good year. The kid really grew over the course of his season with his role expanding. It was really nice to see. At first, I was kind of like, he's just a guy. He's not just a guy anymore. He had a really good year. If he builds on top of that and starts adding more consistency to, a few years down the road, and we get him re-signed and everything else, he stays as productive as he did this year. I'm great with him being a guy inside that we can rely on. And seeing him evolve. Mario Edwards with off the field stuff, I expect to be gone. I talked before about how the McCaskies are, just a no bullshit outfit. They're not going to deal with all the other stuff.
But they have. If they were a no bullshit outfit, they would have said, "Hey, Javon Williams, that's the guy's name that took a swing at that Saints guy. Get rid of him." But they didn't.
But Edwards, he hasn't been charged, right? If I remember correctly, it was just
it's an allegation. There are no formal charges.
So we can't assume he's guilty, but because I'm assuming if it was bad and it's domestic violence, if I'm not mistaken, right? If it was bad, NFL's all over it. Sexual assault, NFL's all over it, and he's not on the field. So that's something like let's just hold off and before we see what happens with that case, because if that was bad, he's not even playing. He's not even suiting up for the Bears. So typically that's how it works. But, we talked about, Brent Urban, Mario Edwards, John Jenkins, these guys that Bears signed off the street and were productive and were, showed up, right? Their coach was Jay Rodgers. That's why this guy is highly touted, highly respected. And so that's how, he's got, I think the momentum is building for him to be the defensive corner. If just so, he knows these guys, he knows how to attack, and it's his turn to go ahead and step up and see what he can do. So, and you don't want to lose him just to, another team. So, but yeah, those are, if you get 2 of those 3 guys, then I'm good there. And then we can go on to talk about the safety position.
Yeah. All right. And so let's talk about the safety position, because one of the things that the Bears should consider is re-signing Tayshaun Gibson, who I thought had a really solid game against the Saints in that playoff game and played better as the season went on. He's as close to a safety that Eddie Jackson has had since Adrian Amos went away. Now, Gibson signed a 1-year, $1 million contract, some change, $1 million and some change, with $550,000 guaranteed. You could perhaps get him for that amount or a little bit more in 2021 and maybe sweeten it up for him if he gets other offers and make it a 2-year deal, increase the guaranteed dollars. How would you guys feel about Gibson re-signing with the Bears? That way, through the draft and free agency, you can address some of the other needs that you have brought up.
I'm okay with Gibson coming back if you're pinching pennies and you're trying to get him under the cap. And but the first thing I would do is I always look to see if I can upgrade, whether it's via the draft or bringing another free agent. Gibson, he had some nice plays. You're right, Aldo. I think he had probably his best game versus the Saints in this past week in the playoff game. However, too many shoulder attempts in terms of tackles, missed tackles. Too many times he had a chance to make a play on the ball. I remember it was at the Rams game where he had a chance to maybe a pick 6, and he goes and he knocks the ball down instead of just picking off and running it into the end zone for a touchdown. So if you can improve there, whether it's draft or free agency, I would do that. But if again, like you said, there's so many spots on this roster. We're just talking defense right now. We talked about offense last week, and we're talking about defense here. And you have limited cap space, and you're gonna have all 8 picks. But if you have to, worst case scenario, you bring back Gibson for another year, I'm okay with that.
I'm great with Gibson coming back. He's had nothing but a consistent career, and again, he's played for mainly dumpster fire franchises. You know, so he's had some bad plays here and there, not nearly as many as A. Jackson has had. A. Jackson has had just such a disappointment of a year. It drives me nuts. The type of negatives that all the minuses that I tallied over the course of the year for A. Jackson. You gotta be dependable back there. I would be more on the board of unloading Eddie Jackson and his contract and bringing in somebody else and trying to get some sort of value back for that than I would keeping him on the roster. Gibson, at least, he has some light. Is there an echo? Oh,
I'm not.
Oh, sorry. I don't know what that was. It was weird. But he was at least consistent. So, I mean, in terms of consistency on defense, that's what you need a lot of times, especially at a position that's so important in the back end. Again.
And if you look at free agency wise, I mean, just going to look at the list here. I mean, a name that really kind of sticks out. I'm not sure in terms of how much he's going to want free agency wise, but Niel from the Falcons. He's a guy. He's a hard hitter. He's a guy that's considered more of a secure tackler, kind of a in the box safety, if you will. Doesn't give you so much in coverage, but neither does Gibson. So again, it depends on what he's looking for in terms of a contract. But I think that'd be a nice fit, kind of like the Adrian Amos, if you will, fit next to Eddie Jackson.
You guys, Marquis Christian was re-signed next season already. I think at a $990,000 contract. Well, frankly, I don't know much about Christian. Do you guys know about him? I know he played a little bit. He was on the squad, but what's his story?
Was he signed to a contract? Or was he signed to a futures reserve contract off the practice squad?
I want to say it was an actual contract. Let me look it up real quick.
Because I think he was on a practice squad, and what happens is whoever was on the practice squad, they went in and signed future reserve contracts.
Right, they signed 2 of them. Excuse me, they sent 10 to future reserves contract. I can't find it right now, but do you know anything about Christian and his potential?
I mean, he was with the Seahawks. Didn't really play much. I think. I don't know if they traded for. I think the Seahawks cut him, and the Bears picked him up, and then signed him to the practice squad. And I think the Jets took him off the Bears practice squad, and then they cut him. So I think right now his only value is in really special teams. The one kid I do want to see play more often, but he's also a free agent, is DeAndre Houston Carson. Whenever he's in there playing, he always seems to make positive plays. Now, for whatever reason, they never give him the regular snaps. Coming out of William & Mary, I thought the kid had potential in terms of being a starting NFL safety. So he's a guy who's always around the football, pretty sure tackler. But the guy I always wanted to see him get a chance. And unfortunately, never got one. So that's a name I would like to see possibly be thrown in the mix there.
I just want to make sure. Somebody said that there was an echo, so I'm not hearing on my end.
I'm hearing an echo on my end.
You are? Mm-hmm. And stop, you're hearing it as well?
I got an echo, definitely.
Okay. Let me see if I fix that here quickly. I'm not hearing it on my end. Steven is hearing it. Spiros is hearing it. Make sure you guys have all of your windows shut down. Whether you might have the YouTube page open for our show, and it might be in another window. If you close that, I will do the same here. You, and it could just be. Ravi says that he refreshed his paycheck. So you guys are still hearing it.
Yeah. I'm still hearing it.
All right, so let's see here. Go cancel. You hear it now? Testing 1 2 2 1 2 testing 1 2 testing 1 2.
I do.
Okay. That is weird. I'm not sure. It's weird that I'm not hearing it.
Came out of nowhere too.
Yeah. All right, so close some stuff down here.
Wow. Jets and former 49ers defensive coordinator Robert Saleh, 5-year deal, new head coach.
Yeah. Right. Someone in the chat already broke the news.
Hey, let me have you guys leave and then come right back, okay?
Okay.
Hi, everybody. My name is Aldo Gandia, and I'm flying solo for the next minute. I'll try to solve our echo problem. Are you still hearing echo that both guys have left? Those of you in the chat room, can you help me out? There's Danny Shimon. Danny, you been working out?
Yeah.
Still an echo. Oh man.
Still hearing echo too.
That is weird. I don't know. I don't know. All right. I think what we're gonna have to do is off an echo from you, Aldo. I'm the culprit. Let me leave, and I'll be back.
Okay. Yeah. So I was just looking through the free agency list, and in terms of the safety position, John Johnson is from the Rams, is a guy that I really like, but I think he's a guy that's going to get a big, huge payday. So I don't know if that's somewhere where the Bears are going to be able to, pony up the money to sign him. And you don't want to get too big contract either. So
did you hear it when I was away?
You heard it when I was talking?
No, I didn't hear it when you were here. The minute that you came back, although I heard it pop back in.
Aldo, when you walk back in.
1, 2, testing. Aldo, it's you. You're the one. Get the fuck out of town. Let these guys play football on their own. There's no echo. It was Aldo's fault. So there's no echo now. You guys hear when I talk, though, right?
Yes.
All right. Let me leave. You guys talk football for a few minutes, and we'll try to figure out the problem.
All right.
Talk about this great defense we have.
Yeah. So have you had a chance to look at any of the safeties in the draft yet, Neil?
I haven't gone all that far yet there, Danny.
Yeah, a couple of players.
Go ahead.
Yeah, a couple of players that I was kind of eyeing. I haven't dug real deep into their tape. Is Andrew Cisco from Syracuse. 5'11", 200 pounds. He's a guy that, has got a lot of tackles in his career, 13 interceptions, 14 passes defense. So he's got some ball skills. If we were talking earlier about that, running a 4-3 scheme or 4-2-5 scheme, possibly with the fifth guy being, the DB with some size. And this guy, Hamza Nasruddin, I think it's how you pronounce it, from FSU, 6'3", 220 pounds, one of those hybrid kind of safety guys. 233 tackles so far in his career with FSU. So that's a guy that if we're going with that kind of a system, that's a guy you can probably look at. Paris Ford, this kid from Pitt, tough kid, man.
Yeah, Paris Ford.
6 interceptions, 10 pass defense, 3 forced fumbles. So definitely a guy that to keep an eye on. And then again, you're going to make fun of me because it's a Texas player, but Caden Stearns.
Danny Hookham.
Caden Stearns, man, 6 feet, 200 pounds. Solid, not the biggest guy in the world, but he's 173 tackles for his career, 8.5 tackles for loss, 8 passes defense, 5 interceptions. Again, not the biggest kid in the world, but definitely a guy that's always flying around and is around football. So if we're looking towards the draft, those are some of the guys I've early on that I've targeted. But I'm not sure what you think about drafting a safety and putting him next to Eddie Jackson.
I would be great with that. Again, I think that's a need that goes a little bit further down the list after inside linebacker. I think that's probably 1A when it comes down to needs on the defensive side of the ball. If we bring Gibson back, I'm not going to be upset about that because the kid has been nothing but consistent. He's been nothing but consistent this entire year. You just kind of worry that he's not the answer and that he's just a placeholder, and you're going to be in the same position you are next year, looking at your different options. What did we sign Eddie Jackson for? Do you remember the terms of that contract?
Off the top of my head, no. I want to say it was a 4-year deal. For 4 years. He was the highest paid safety in the league. So
second highest.
I think what they're going to do is they're actually going to go to him this year. My belief is they're going to try and restructure that contract and kind of get some money back, so that way they can give him some more open up some cap space, so that way they can give some wiggle room in free agency. So I think that's the one guy that I don't think they're going to cut him. It's only the second year of a 4-year deal. So I think that's the guy that they're not going to trade him because that's going to be a huge cap hit. So I think he's here to stay. We were talking about middle linebacker, inside linebacker. So I haven't had a chance to dig deep into some of these guys, but there's some intriguing names. Obviously for me, Micah Parsons from Penn State is a guy that's going to probably go top 15 in the draft. He's an athletic linebacker, more of a sideline player. Some people are disappointed in him because he's got a real thin frame and he's kind of tabbed or labeled as a pass rusher, but he's not really a pass rusher. He's more of a sideline playmaker. But I think he's going to be gone in the first round. Chaz Surratt, the brother of Sage Surratt, interesting guy from North Carolina. This is a guy that was a quarterback, flipped over to defense, and next thing you know, is a tackling freaking machine. So he's a guy that I think he's about 6'1", 225 pounds. Intrigues me from North Carolina. Obviously, a guy you're going to be looking at, like you mentioned, 3rd, 4th round area. He might even make it that long. So, I mean, because this guy's really impressed a lot of scouts around the league. Some guys in your old neck of the woods, Monty Rice from Georgia. What do you think of him? Give me your thoughts on Monty Rice, having watched him for his career at Georgia in the SEC.
Well, he was on the other side of the SEC, so I didn't really watch him too much, but he was a kid that I remember the recruiting process was really highly coveted. And I mean, not to cut you short on Monty Rice, but the Chaz Surratt kid, I remember that kid. I wanted that kid really bad. And, the thing about Chaz Surratt is that he brought a lot of leadership and a lot of toughness. And not only that, he was also like an all-time leading scorer on the hardwood as well. Big-time basketball player, point guard. I think he was a point guard in high school. Right. He was a big-time athlete. Yeah. Coming out of North Carolina, and Sage was a big-time player too. Obviously, not as much as Chaz, but both those kids were in my mind, even before they even got the offers, big-time recruits that I pounded the table for.
So Chaz, you want him as a quarterback, or you want?
No. I didn't say I want him as a quarterback, but okay. You watch a kid play, you see his toughness, you see his leadership, you see what he did in hoops. He was like the all-time. He was the leading scorer on like a state title team.
So what do you play in high school? I don't follow his high school career. Was he a quarterback in high school, Chaz?
Yeah, he was a quarterback in high school. Yeah.
Okay, so he was obviously being recruited as a quarterback then.
I mean, he was actually being recruited, I think, as a quarterback / athlete.
Okay.
Because he did a lot of different types of things with the football. He wasn't necessarily one of those dudes that sprayed it all over the field. It's blanking me so hard what high school that was. I usually have this like coming off the top of my head like that,
But you mentioned a key thing there was character, football character. The kid went to North Carolina as a quarterback. It wasn't working for him. They offered to put him on defense, and he didn't blink. He got into the transfer portal and trying to leave and all that stuff. He ended up switching to defense, and he's one of the top linebackers in the nation right now, coming out in this class. So again, Chaz, 6'1", 225 pounds, like you mentioned, terrific athlete. In just 2 seasons at linebacker, it had 206 tackles, 22.5 tackles for loss, guys. All right, 12.5 sacks, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. The kid's all over the field when you put his tape on in North Carolina. So Monty Rice, we talked about it, Georgia. Dylan Moses, Alabama. I think this year he had an off year, obviously coming off the ACL. Curious to see what your thoughts are on a Dylan Moses, 6'2", 235 pounds.
Dylan Moses was one of those dudes, if you guys remember, was recruited as a 7th grader coming out of high school in Louisiana. Alabama stole him out from underneath LSU's noses. He got his first offer when he was in 7th grade, blew up on the scene. I don't think he necessarily had the high school career that you would expect a 5-star, blah, 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 all the stars and bars and all that garbage, what would have. But, he was a dude that he had all the numbers. He had all the hoopla. He had all the hyperbole and everything else. He goes to Alabama. He's got a lot of moving pieces around his recruitment that I think a lot of times get in the way of a kid's productivity, his growth, his development. I think, with those types of dudes that, the best thing that could happen to them is they just get away from the college football scene altogether and then go and be professionals. And they really take football as their career, seriously instead of being a student athlete. But, Dylan Moses, in terms of just being an athlete, Danny, you just read off the measurables. He's going to run unbelievably. He's going to test off the charts. He's going to broad jump out of the gym. All the underwear Olympic stuff, he's going to crush. The thing will be is that, he didn't necessarily have this rock star career at Alabama. I don't think necessarily. The thing will be is, where exactly is he going to be valued? And how high will he be picked, and where is he going to go, and what is his best fit going to be? Because I'm not sure he really, solidified and established himself as a fit for a particular style, so far in his career.
See, I like him as an interior linebacker, particularly in the Bears system. The guy that doesn't necessarily have to run sideline to sideline. More sort of a guy that, because you got Roquan doing all that, kind of a younger, hopefully more athletic Danny Trevathan is what I'm looking at. Now, if you put on this 2020 tape, obviously he's coming off an ACL, so he doesn't look as explosive as you put on a 2019 tape, prior to his injury. So I think that's something we got to take a look at there as well. But a couple more, you can tell I love the SEC, right? A couple more guys in the SEC. I got Jabril Cox from LSU. He's a transfer from North Dakota State. 6'3", 225. Talk about an athlete. This is a guy that can cover. I see him covering receivers downfield, dude, off the slot. So this is a guy that can be another athletic inside linebacker to Roquan. But I saw a lot of missed tackles with him. I think, like I said, he's about 225. So that's some of these guys are some more hybrid / linebacker, safety types. So he might be a little bit too light in the pants for me to play inside linebacker. The other kid that I haven't had a chance to look at, but I've heard a lot about him, Nick Bolton from Missouri. Have you had a chance to watch him at all, or have any background information on Nick Bolton?
I followed his career loosely. I mean, he's got a ton of production.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of times numbers talk. I don't really know a whole lot about his background. I mean, obviously, with being up there in Missouri, they have a different recruiting ground than we would have when I was down there at Mississippi State. I saw Jabril Cox as a transfer portal kid, and just sort of peeked in on him every now and again. And obviously, you see him every single year because North Dakota, the North Dakota State Invitational is on ESPN2 on a yearly basis. I wouldn't be surprised if, and I'm pretty sure that this has been in his background. I'm pretty sure he was recruited to play a different position and developed into a linebacker. So I don't think he's been playing linebacker for very long, which may play into the whole, he's not very fundamentally sound just yet.
Right.
But man, that kid can play, man. I mean, once he gets to the next level, he can get coached up better. He learns the finer nuances of that position. I'm fired up about Jabril Cox. And he could be one of those. He could be one of those unique dudes that could play in multiple positions and have multiple responsibilities. Nick Bolton, I think, is definitely a pitch and hold middle linebacker that definitely has a really good skill set. That definitely has a better athletic profile than somebody like Danny Trevathan at his current age right now. Right. But I do think that he's a middle linebacker all the way. That it'll be really interesting to look at once we get into like round.
He's a little undersized from you. Nick Bolton is about 5'11", so 5'10", 5'11". So we'll see how that works out. But I mean, the guy hits like a ton of bricks, man.
Oh yeah, physicality all the way.
Yeah, so he's the guy. I think that if you get him in the later, day 3, maybe late day 2, depending how everything works out. Definitely,
I think he's going to be a late day 2 guy. I think you touched on that very specific fact. I think he's going to be a late day 2 guy. I don't think he's going to be around day 3. So if you want a physical presence that you like at your linebacker position, and you have him available in the late 3rd round, maybe you trade up to get him. I have no idea, but in terms of physical linebackers, I wouldn't have any problem with him coming in replacing Danny. Obviously on his way down, like we talked about.
I missed I forgot who it was, or someone asked about Buddy Johnson from Texas A&M.
Buddy Johnson from A&M. Yeah, he was the guy that came out of nowhere. I remember in the recruiting process, he came out of nowhere. I think he was a JUCO guy that ended up at A&M. Didn't really have a whole lot of he didn't really have a whole lot of great tape in high school as well. He had some measurables, and he had a 40 time, and he had some splash plays as being a heavy hitter and all those types of things. He was really hard to evaluate, and he went to A&M and had a really decent career. I'm not sure exactly where he falls right now. I'm probably thinking he's a day 3 guy, just for me personally. Without having gone through the tape and really evaluated him deep down to the core, but kudos to the kid. He had a great career. He's definitely gonna be somebody we look at once we get to the middle linebacker position.
Yeah, he's someone I haven't had a chance to study deeply. I've seen him play. I've seen a lot of Texas A&M games play, and he looks like he's an instinctive linebacker. He's about 6 feet 6'1", if I'm not mistaken, 240 some pounds. Highly productive. I think this year he had about 85 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. So he looks the guy like to be instinctive. So he could be a guy, like you said, day 3, a guy who plays hard, knows the game, loves the game.
Great motor guy.
Yeah, so that's why you want to see in some of these guys that come in, especially day 3 guys. Guys are motivated, great motor guys that go sideline to sideline, instinctive. That's what you want. I love seeing those guys in day 3, and those guys usually, they're flying on special teams. That's for sure. And then they're challenging their starter to go ahead and see some playing time. So Buddy Johnson, I think that was Alex Sims. That was a great suggestion there for Buddy Johnson.
Yeah, good job, Alex.
So those are the middle linebackers that we're kind of looking at right now, just off the cuff here within the draft.
Hey, Aldo's back.
Hey, here he is.
You hear an echo now?
Speak again. Speak some more.
Hear an echo now. Go now.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Well, guess what, guys? You guys are doing such a tremendous job. Take to the end of the show. It's all yours.
All right, so we're talking about linebackers still here, and I also kind of went through the free agency numbers or free agency list, and guys potentially that could fit in the Bears system and Bears scheme. It could be in their price range. Again, this salary cap, guys, is going to be huge. We're going to see what the number is, and if it's as low as they're saying at 175, the Bears are going to be right up against the salary cap. They're going to have to be really creative in terms of going out there and restructuring contracts and all this stuff. So, speaking of before we get to the free agent linebackers, are there guys, Neil, that you think, or guys in the chat, guys you think that the Bears might cut, whether it's on offense or defense, to create some cap space? Are there any names in particular you're thinking that might be cap casualties?
The one thing I thought was really interesting, and I think I put this on when I went on my Twitter rant evaluating positions after that loss when I was really, really on fire. When we go back to the
I was
D-line,
going to ask you if you were drinking that night.
I mean, why wouldn't I be? No, but seriously though, I mean, you can't say that you weren't on fire after that game.
Yeah,
I think the entire fan base was on fire after that game. I think entire Bears media was on fire after that game. But
I think you wanted to cut the whole team after that game, didn't you?
I wanted to cut 100% Wims and Anthony Miller. That's who I wanted to get off the roster immediately, because I have I don't deal with stupidity. I have no tolerance for stupidity. And so, in any other football program that I've been in my life, when things like that happen, the kid's gone immediately, unless he has a damn good reason why, right? Or unless it's been traditionally a do well type of kid that, he just had a lack of judgment. Okay, then fine. But again, players coach situations, you typically get that kind of soft, sort of, demeanor when you handle, player misconduct and shenanigans and all those types of things. Just have no tolerance for it. But, going back to the defensive line in terms of players that we can go ahead and snip loose and be creative with. I'm not sure what kind of feelings of dissent there are at Hallis Hall this year after Eddie Goldman decided to go ahead and sit out the year when virtually the entire rest of the league decided to play. Right. Goldman's presence was sorely missed the entire year. He definitely set the defense back. I always talk about how Akeem Hicks, he's the alpha. He runs the show. He's the MVP of the defense, the whole deal. Eddie Goldman, sitting out the entire year. I'm not sure what kind of doghouse that's put him in, that's put him in, what kind of feelings of dissent there are. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to use Eddie Goldman as a trade chip to either move up to get, the quarterback that they desire, that they want high in the first round, or if they use him to get another position of need moving up in the draft, maybe in the second, maybe in the third, whatever the case may be, just using that as a trade chip to gain some leverage and draft positioning.
So the only thing with Goldman, I don't think you cut him. I think he's got value, and obviously I think he'll help the Bears. He's one of the
trade chip.
He's one, right. He's one of three guys on the roster that are under contract. However, I think they restructured his contract, so I think they kind of extended him a little bit. And I think what happened is if you trade him, that's going to be a huge cap hit. We have some people in the chat saying that he has asthma and he's a legitimate reason to opt out. So again, I don't hold that against him. Yeah. Opting out, I don't hold it against him. But I don't think you could afford to trade Eddie Goldman. I think Steven in the chat made a nice or curious suggestion because he said trade Kyle Fuller. Now Fuller has a $20 million cap hit this coming season, if I'm not mistaken. This is his last year of his contract. Is that contract that the Packers signed him to and the Bears match. So trading him at that $20 million price tag might be a little bit difficult. But if you do trade him, I don't think you get much back from him. He's another guy that maybe you go to and say, you know what, let's lower this cap number. Let's cut it in half, right? And free up $10 million, and we'll give you an extend him for another 2-3 years or whatnot, and spread that over so that's another kid that you can probably go to and get some money out of it and kind of lower that, or give yourself some more wiggle room under the cap. So those are a couple of players there. Back to Anthony Miller and Javon Wims. I think you and I had a quick text exchange on Sunday. And first of all, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen a clear view, I should say, of it. Was that a punch or was that a shove Anthony Miller did? I mean, either way, it was dumb. I'm not defending it. I'm not saying he was right or whatnot. He was coached up. Don't do it. I just don't know if that was an ejectable offense, right? Because I don't know if it was a closed fist. The replay, at least I saw, I don't know if the guys in the chat, Neil, if you guys saw an actual replay that showed a closed fist punch. I saw a shove, but I didn't see a punch. So that's the one thing. I think Wims is gone, right? I think Miller has 1 year left on his rookie contract, and I think you invested so much in him already. I personally, I want to see, because I think the kid's talented. I just want to see what he has left. Maybe he puts it on. Maybe he turns it on. My biggest thing, and this is what I want to ask you, Neil, and I want to ask our listeners in the chat. Why is Mike Fury, the receivers coach, job still secure? Is it because he's an ex-teammate in the Arena League of Matt Nagy? They're friends. Because if you look at the receivers, right, none of the receivers really have progressed and had been developed under Mike Fury. We've had a conversation previously on other shows, and he's a guy. There's Aldo. I think that's Aldo showing it. Does it show us punch? That's up. See, that looks like a shove. I don't see a punch.
There's an angle from the pylon cam right behind Anthony Miller that shows the hand to the head.
Right, open hand. Not, I don't know. I can't tell if it's a fist. Either way, I don't know if it was open hand. I don't think it should have been an ejectable offense. 15-yard penalty. It's dumb penalty. Yes, but I mean, getting back to who has Mike Fury helped develop? Darnell Mooney came in this good. He didn't develop Darnell Mooney. Allen Robinson's a veteran. He came in this good. Riley Ridley can't get off the practice squad, or I'm sorry, he's not. It can't be active on the field. What's up with that? Why is he allowed to stick around? So that's a curious to see if that makes a change. If Matt Nagy makes a change there in terms of the position coach there. So that's the thing with Anthony Miller, is I want to see a better quarterback play, and I want to see hopefully another position coach maybe get the best out of him. So that's why I'd hold on to him for another. It's on his rookie deal. It's the last year of his contract, and if he comes in training camp and he's still giving you the problem you're talking about, go ahead and cut him. Dave Luckett says Fury sucks, and I think you're right, Dave. I think you're right, because I have not seen him develop any freaking receivers on this roster. Neil, you saw Riley Ridley play at Georgia. He's not a speed burner, but he's a guy who's got some size. He ran some pretty decent route, really nice routes at Georgia, who ran a pro style system. Why can't Riley Ridley get on the field here with the Bears?
He burned us. I was gonna go ahead and tell you, he burned us pretty well. I don't know. They're not giving him a chance. He's barely taken any snaps all year. And to me, he's the next one in the game after you get through A-Rob and after you get through Darnell Mooney. I think he's the next one in the game because Anthony Miller has already shown that he can't handle his emotions and he can't run routes with the type of fundamentals that you need him to run routes with. The quarterbacks can't trust the kid. And he's built that up himself. It's not like the media is saying it. It's not like the coaches are saying it. It's not like, he's had a narrative built around him. No, he's gone from here and has come down to here. He's built that narrative himself.
But if a receiver is not running routes, right, isn't it on to his coach to teach him, to develop him?
Yeah, 100%.
If we're saying he's not running his routes correctly.
That is 100% an issue. Is that he hasn't been developed the right way, but I feel like he's regressed. There it is. There's the one I was looking at. Yeah, see.
But I don't see a closed fist.
The closed fist, open fist, whatever. He gives him a shot to the head.
Yeah, he shuts him. Yeah, shuts him to the head. Yeah, no doubt about it. Should have been a 15-yard penalty, dumb penalty. Yes, but something to eject him with. That's didn't he already have one personal foul penalty to his name already, and the second one got him tossed? Was that what happened? So I don't think he had a personal foul penalty. Unless if he did, I missed it. I don't. If he did have a personal foul penalty early in the game, that would have been a second one. Then yes, he's gone. Yes, but that explains it then, because it's something I just didn't see all close fist. Yeah. And in terms of development, I think Anthony Miller's got talent. I think no one denies he's got talent. But the question is, why isn't it coming out? Why are we not seeing it on the field? To me, if the player just doesn't get it, his football character isn't there. He's not someone that's dedicated to his craft and getting better. I think by now we would have known by that. I think he would have been gone, right? I don't think they would have kept him around. But obviously the kid, cares. The teammates seem to like him. But it to me is like Mike Ferry, the receivers coach, has not developed any receivers. We talked about Miller as an example. Riley Ridley is an example. You mean another young receiver on the roster that hasn't developed, hasn't gotten better under his watch. So those are questions I have. But getting back to this team and guys, I think looking on the offensive side, we're talking at possible cap casualties. I think Bobby Massey is potentially that guy they're probably gonna go ahead and let go. That saves them some money there. And in terms of Jimmy Graham, I think this is a conversation that people were kind of, when they first signed Jimmy Graham, I was like, Jimmy Graham, why would you bring Jimmy Graham? I think he had a solid season. He ended up, I think, was it 8 or 9 touchdowns on the year. He's not the playmaker that he was in his early days, but he's definitely a red zone target. A guy had 8 or 9 touchdowns this season, so he was effective. I think his option for next year is about 9 or 10 million. Obviously, I wouldn't pay him that, but would you be open to probably restructuring his contract and bring him back as a mentor to Cole Kmet at a lower salary, or you just want to you want to go ahead and let him go and just move on with Cole Kmet? And there's another name I want to bring up to you, but answer that Jimmy Graham question first.
No, I mean, Jimmy Graham, I like Jimmy Graham a lot as a role player. I think as a red zone threat, that is exactly what he is at this point in his career. It's unfortunate that he is on this type of offense to finish out the last, little bits that he has to contribute to, potentially, doing something productive with his career. But, if it's restructuring his contract and bringing him back for mentorship and being a role player, I'm great with that. As long as it doesn't take up too much space, financially, in terms of what we have to do to make this roster better. Cole Kmet, obviously, he's the dude. Right, obviously, yeah, he's a dude. He's a future. He's got toughness of hands and physicality, and he wants to bury everybody in the dirt. Every time he makes contact. I love the way this kid plays. Tight end you, man. We said last week. You came from Notre Dame. Tight end you.
Yeah, keep an eye on Mark Mayer coming up.
Anthony Fasano was that kid's name. I was trying to think.
Right. Mark Mayer coming up. He's only a freshman this year at Notre Dame. But keep an eye on him in the next couple of years. He's going to be another stud coming out of Notre Dame. But here's a question for you guys out in the chat and Niel as well. Something I thought about. It probably won't happen. The kid is too good to be available at number 20. But say, for example, right, first round 20, Kyle Pitts is sitting there, staring you in the face. Kyle Pitts and Cole Kmet and an offense that's heavy tight end usage. You can bring your own version, hopefully a safer version of Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski, if you will. Mm-hmm. 2 tight ends, big playmakers. You can always split Pitts out as a receiver. I mean, I think he's a big receiver anyway. I mean, he's got those receiving skills. Yeah. And he's got the long arms, the huge catch radius. That'd be something I would think about. I mean, again, I don't think he's going to be available at 20. I think he's going to go probably top 10, maybe top 15. But if he's there and your quarterback that you like is not there, would you double down on tight end back-to-back years with your top picks and go and feature an offense around that monster, Kyle Pitts and Cole Kmet? If you do that, what are you doing at the quarterback position? Well, that's the other question. I hadn't thought it all through all the way. I just threw it out there. All things being equal, if we had a dude that can deliver the football, absolutely, 100%. I'm not sold on the quarterback position though. I am I'm very uneasy about that position. I'm gonna answer that question with, right? Sam Ehlinger, baby, in a second or third round. There you go. Done. Danny Hook. But Anybody else on offense? I think it's just a curious way to look at it. A big body tight end, big play. I think this guy's going to be a future star in the NFL. Kyle Pitts, that is. Just an option that probably won't even present itself. But if it's there, you got to think about it, right? If you're Ryan Pace and the Bears. So, but moving on from tight end, are there any other position on offense that you looked at that they might go ahead and cut to free up some salary cap space?
On offense, I'm not sure that that's too much of an option. I think the biggest question offensively from a weapon standpoint is what is Tariq Cohen going to look like coming back from this injury? Like I talked about last week. We've seen really explosive dudes before try to come back from that ACL injury and just not be the same guy. Not that Tariq Cohen was Tyreek Hill or anything, but he was sort of a homeless man's version of Tyreek Hill. And he did a lot of different, gadget type stuff for this offense and really made defenses think twice about some of the things that they were doing, from a schematic standpoint. If we don't have that guy back, that takes a weapon away, which then lends the credibility to the theory that if Kyle Pitts is available at 20, do you go ahead and give that a thought? Anytime I think you have a chance to add weapons to your offensive arsenal, you have to at least give that a serious thought and, potentially make that move. If we come back, we take A-Rod back, we got Darnell Mooney, we got Cole Kmet, and we got Kyle Pitts with Mont in the backfield and at the very least functional quarterback with an offensive line that can give him 3 seconds to deliver the football. Then, now we're cooking with gas a little bit, I think.
All right. And I think Cohen's, at least for me, I kind of took him for granted. I think his playmaking ability, especially his ability as a receiver out of the slot, he's probably has the best hands on the team. Him and Darnell Mooney right now are the best hands on the team. His ability to give you that extra dimension, that extra gear on offense in terms of speed, that was missed. When he left, that was sorely missed. So you touched real quick on the offensive line. So I think we were supposed to go over the interior of the offensive line and today and go over our board, but with the news conference that the Bears gave us yesterday, we kind of have pushed that back a little bit to our next show. However, but looking at the interior of the offensive line, I think right now the way it's set up is Whitehair at left guard, Mustafa at center, and then Alex Bars at right guard. Do you, with James Daniels coming back next season, do you like that combination? Do you mix and match? Do you keep Mustafa there at center? Do you put him to the bench and put in James Daniels? Do you move Whitehair back at center? What is your optimum combination there for that interior of the offensive line? Because I like those four players. Just the combination I can work with.
The combination makes things really interesting. And I think anytime you have four guys for three positions is a great problem to have. I think James Daniels starting off at left guard was the most ideal situation we can walk into. And so I think you go into OTAs at least with the idea of James Daniels being your left guard in the back of your head. Once you get to camp, you start working with the different combinations, just to see what works. And that's essentially what they had to do in midseason this year. They didn't have the offseason this year to really work on those different types of combinations that we could have, worked out, especially if shit hit the fan, right? And so, you get to the point to where you're in November now, you finally have a combination that works, and we see what happened from there going forward with the running game and, with the offensive production. I think you got to keep Mustafa at center. I think he's done a great job there. I think Alex Bars is probably going to end up being the odd man out, or at least the rotational guy, to go ahead and spell Daniels, to go ahead and spell Whitehair. If you go ahead and move him to right guard, you bring in Alex Bars to get those guys a breather. But again, anytime you have four guys for three positions like that, especially inside, four tough guys, four athletic dudes, four powerful dudes that can go ahead and get it done inside, that's a phenomenal problem to have. And you're sitting great with those four guys going into camp next fall. Obviously, Bobby Massey at right tackle, that's the position that you really need to look at as far as where we need to move forward with that. And that's probably, I keep saying it, that's probably our number 2 pick we had to make in this draft.
Right. See, I think, the fact is they lucked into this combination, right? They were talking about this in this press conference, Ryan Pace and Nagy were going at the whiteboard and putting combination together, and they lucked into this combination here. So I agree with you. I think Daniels, before he went down, was playing his best football of his young career. I think you plug him back in at left guard. I think you leave Mustafa at center, and I flip white hair over to right guard, and I put and unfortunately Alex Barnes is going to be the kind of like the utility guy back there. The guy he played all three positions this year. He played left guard, he played center, and he played right guard for the Bears this year. So he's a guy that can give you great flexibility, great depth back there. And you're right. I think you leave Leno there left tackle for the time being, and I think you go ahead in that second round. And there's a guy that I've told you I absolutely love, and I think you think second round is too high for him, but man, you bring in Liam Eichenberg from Notre Dame. You flip him and you put him at right tackle there. You're lying with Leno at left tackle. You have Daniels at guard, Mustafa at center, Whitehair at right guard, and you put Liam Eichenberg at right tackle. And I think you have yourself the makings of a solid offensive line. Your thoughts?
Liam Eichenberg, I had as a third round pick when we did the offensive tackle show last month, as a guy that could potentially work himself and potentially be overdrafted if his evaluation process didn't go through the way that a lot of people think it would. But he could probably be overdrafted in the second round. I can see him being a second round guy. But I mean, again, you're talking about a dude that, as far as Notre Dame offensive line pedigree, like those are tough physical dudes. And I think, one of the things that, or maybe the thing that I keep on harping on as far as offensive line goes, is tough physical dudes is pretty much what wins you football games. You're talking about a dude that had, 26 starts coming into the season, allowed 3 sacks his entire career entering this year, prototypical size, aggressive, quick feet, above average athletically. I always thought that sometimes his aggressiveness would cause him to lunge a little bit, get off balance. But the kid gives great effort. He blocks downfield. And we saw him towards the tail end of the year just continue to flourish at left tackle for Notre Dame. I love to see him finish more often personally, but I love his mentality. He's highly productive. He comes from a hardcore football school in Sagan Nation, out of Cleveland, Ohio. I love everything about that kid. If he ends up being a right tackle until we figure out what's going on with the left tackle position, or maybe he just ends up being a right tackle for life. I don't know. But, again, I say it before, I say it again. I'm not upset with Charles Leno. I think he's an adequate left tackle. Is he, a top 10 kid in the league? Probably not. Could certainly be doing worse. But, solidifying that right tackle position and the thought that Liam Eichenberg could be that dude makes me really excited about the possibility of that, the prospect of that.
Notre Dame's offensive line was one of the best in the country this past season, and they could have 4 guys drafted. And I know we were going to talk about this guy today. We've pushed it off the interior offensive line talk to next week, but we'll touch real quick on Aaron Banks, the left guard for Notre Dame, and a guy that's going to come in. It's going to be drafted. I think his junior. He came out. He proclaimed that he's coming out for the draft. So guy's about 6'4", 6'5", 325 pounds. Basically he's been a starter for 3 years now. An all AP All-American first team, all ACC first team. I don't know if the Bears are going to go interior offensive line, but we don't know. What are your thoughts on Aaron Banks from Notre Dame?
At the point in the draft where we'd probably be looking at offensive line, I would expect Aaron Banks to already be gone, because I think he is a second round pick. I think that, you mentioned his play history a little bit. 3-year starter. He's played 38 games, 31 starts, 31 straight starts, might I add. Consensus All-American. Big body dude. He's hard to move. Plays with a ton of physicality in the run and passing game. He's productive and efficient. Can really open up some space. I think he's able to redirect with ease. Gets great extension with his arms. He's got great length. I don't think he's necessarily the most fluid guy at the second level or downfield, but he's absolutely functional. And if you guys saw the Rose Bowl game, I mean, you saw this guy open up, run downfield, cover. He's a big boy that can move, man. And he had a really good game versus Alabama. I thought. I think he can improve as far as picking up blitzes goes. Could wind up on either side of center, really. If I can, my best guess is he probably ends up starting off at right guard. I think that a lot of times your left guard needs to be like an extremely smooth and fluid athlete, but I think that ultimately he can play either side of the center. You get the feeling that he's an awesome teammate too, and this is the thing I love most about Aaron Banks, right? You get the feeling he's an awesome teammate because he's often the guy. He's covering downfield. He's picking up his guys off the floor in the end zone. He's lifting up his teammates after they score. He's dapping them up on the helmet. I think that at one point, he might have been, a captain if they did rotational guys. I can't possibly remember that, but he seems to be a great locker room dude. And as far as chemistry, which is one of the big buzzwords from yesterday, as far as chemistry, especially in the offensive line room, you love guys like that.
I agree. Yeah, he's a big body guy. Within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, he's got some pretty good athletic ability. We asked him to get downfield at 15, 20 yards on the field. You can see that the 325 pounds come into effect there. But again, I agree with you. I think he's a day 2 pick, probably second round, if not early third round. I think that's going to be an area where the Bears probably will not be going for an interior offensive lineman. I think if they do draft an interior offensive lineman, it's going to be more for depth, just to protect themselves. And someone mentioned, I think Bars is a restricted free agent. I'm not sure if it's this year or I think it's an exclusive restricted free agent. I think that they still have hold his rights, so I think he'll be back for next year. But for later on down the road. Also, don't forget they drafted Hambright from Colorado and then also Simmons. So those are two big guys that might be developing down the pipeline. So they might not be looking at interior offensive alignment. So of the group, just to give these guys a preview for next week, of the group we have here, is there a player that's being highly touted by draft Twitter, if you will, that you just don't see or don't like as much?
Well, the interesting thing about that is that I have a really interesting list, and I think draft Twitter is not gone completely off the rails as far as where they see guys going. I actually see, a really interesting combination of players that could be available in the late second day, early third day group that the Bears would be highly interested in. One of which I think is David Moore out of Grambling. David Moore, he's a former basketball player. They only played 2 years of high school football and developed really into kind of a man-child in a way. I think as far as his body type goes, he's kind of average, but he's got super long arms. He's going to end up having, among the longest arms in the draft. And he uses those well to create space. And he has great punch. He's active with his feet and his hands. He's powerful. I think he's a dude that, once we get into Senior Bowl week, he was invited to Senior Bowl. He was the first HBCU to accept his invitation to the Senior Bowl. And we'll talk more about him next week. I'm not going to get too in-depth because I think he's really exciting.
Right.
He's a dude that I think provides a lot of potential value, for the Bears in those mid rounds. Like right now, I have him going 5th. There's a lot of hyperbole about that kid going a little bit higher than that, possibly like early day 2. I don't necessarily see that yet. I don't think he's really proven himself against great competition yet. Although, if you look at what he did, David Moore opted out of Senior Bowl to prep for the draft. That must have just happened.
That's a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
but yeah, with him, he's about 6'1", 6'2", if that, and he's got those long arms. It's just a weird build.
Yeah.
When we had Jim Nagy on, he talked about him possibly kicking inside to center. So apparently some of the scouts that talked to him about, maybe moving this kid inside of center said they were going to, move him there and try and practice him there at the Senior Bowl week and see if he can handle center. I'm not sure if he's ever snapped in his life, but yeah, that's an interesting name to keep an eye on. The one guy that I want to bring up, and I've seen people, label this guy high, like top 5 in the first round, low first round, second round at center, tackle, guard, and that's Rashawn Slater from Northwestern. I got a first round grade on him, but I have him at guard. A surprise. Some people think he might be kicked inside eventually. His best position might be center in the NFL. Some people think he's a tackle, like a top 10 tackle, which I don't see. However, just curious on your thoughts on Rashawn Slater.
I love Rashawn Slater, and honestly, I'm all over the board with him because.
What do you like him at? What position?
I like him inside. I think he can end up being a center just because you talk about a highly functional mental kid from a place like Northwestern. Obviously, he's got the smarts from a book standpoint. From everything that I know, he's also got the football intelligence as well. But I mean, ultimately, you hear Fitz talk about this kid, and when Fitz says a kid is special, he's special. That's pretty much what it comes down to it. Fitz doesn't, I know Fitz does a good job of hyping up his kids, but he doesn't just throw around the word special too often. He says his kid is special. So that tells you a little bit about not only the kid's mental capacity, it tells you a lot about his character, his leadership, everything that Northwestern football has came to be known, since Fitz took over that program after Randy Walker passed away. I think that, he's a guy where the Senior Bowl would be huge for not only his measurables, but also for, showing up against the best competition, coming out in the draft after sitting out this year. He's smart, athletic, tough, physical, all the adjectives, all the buzzwords. Anytime you bring that into your offensive line room, it's always a good bet. Ultimately, he's listed as 6'3", 305. If he has all the length measurables, he could be functional at tackle. I think he could, be a really athletic guard that could have a really nice career. Center, again, with the whole, football intelligence, mental capacity, smart thing going on. He could really excel at that position as well. So I think it's really interesting. I think you have a kid that offers a lot of position versatility in Rashawn Slater, a kid that played left tackle and at a really high level for a place like Northwestern that values all the things that this franchise, being the Bears, says they value. So I think it will be really interesting to see where, in fact, this kid goes and what type of offseason he has from a Senior Bowl standpoint and combine standpoint. Hopefully we have the combine, and pro days are going to be huge, really, for all these guys.
See, that's the thing where with Slater, and I agree. I think he's got first round. He's got a first round grade for me as well. Like I said, I like him inside a guard. I like his athletic ability. I think him being able to come out and pull on wham blocks, trap blocks, and all that stuff. I think him leading the running back in the hole and on counter trays and all that stuff. I think that's where he's going to excel. The one thing, if you're looking at in terms of the Bears, if Slater is there at 20, for hypothetically speaking, right? Kind of like how we were talking with Pitts there. If you're looking at their Bears at 20 now, if you look at him as an interior offensive lineman, okay, obviously I don't do you bring him in because the value is so high for you at 20, you bring him in as a, even though he can't play right tackle, in my opinion. He's going to be either an interior guy, possibly a left tackle. Do you bring him in, plug him in a left guard, and then possibly use Whitehair as or Daniels or one of these easy guys as a trade bait to go ahead and recoup some of these picks? Whitehair's got a big contract. It could be a guy that you might want to be able to trade and maybe make some cap space. I'm not sure how that all works with his cap hold and all that stuff. So, is that a possibility? And then eventually, if you go ahead and if once you get Leno off the books, then you can push him back out to left tackle, try a kid like Slater at left tackle and see how he holds up. If he doesn't, you put him back at left guard, but at least you tried it. So I think he gives you that type of possibility. But if you're the Bears at 20, and he's sitting there and you, it's just going to be a curious thing. Do you pass up a kid that talented, that the guy that is probably going to be able to come in and start, day one, week one, for you on the offensive line, somewhere on the offensive line? So that's going to be a curious decision. So, but this is just a sample, guys, a preview of what we're going to be talking about next week. I think next week our show is going to be dedicated predominantly to the interior offensive line. Niel and I have got a bunch of players we're going to go ahead and break down. It's going to be guards. It's going to be centers. We're going to have to put our draft board up there. It's going to be huge. So we got a lot of players to go ahead and talk about, but just a preview here tonight of what we're going to be doing next week. We'll probably have to try and get a guest for you as well. Hopefully we'll see how it goes. So looks like we've lost Aldo for the evening due to his echoing problem. But just wanted to say thanks again for everyone for listening.
Wait, question.
Oh, here we go.
Oh. What quarterback would you personally move up for? I would try to move up for Zach Wilson. The factor one says absolutely 100%. I would do whatever I can if I'm just right outside the scope of what I think, where I think Zach Wilson will fall. I will figure out some way, shape, or form to go ahead and move up a few spots to get that kid. To me personally, I think he's going to fall 10 to 15. That's where I think he's going to go. Could he be overdrafted a little bit in the top 10? Yes, probably. That's probably a valid projection as far as a kid being overdrafted. And as we always know, quarterbacks end up being overdrafted. I think where his value is like 10 to 15 in the draft. We'll see what happens once we get through, the All-Star period, once we get through the Pro Day period. And once we get, out of February and into, March and April, and Danny and I could start, getting with some of these pro guys as far as where they think kids are going to fall. we'll probably have a better feeling on where Zach is going to go and really what the Bears could possibly do to go up and get him.
Yeah, for me, in terms of guys I'd go up and trade for, Zach Wilson is a guy I'd go up and trade for. Justin Fields, guys, is a guy I would go up and trade for. I was trying to pull up the Aldo, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you pull up the top 10 of the Jets? I know number 2 is the Jets, and that pick is going to be up for grabs. So I believe it's going to be up for grabs. Obviously we don't know until we get closer to the draft, but I don't think you have to go up to number 2 to get either Zach Wilson or Justin Fields. But if you are Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace and either one of these 2 kids, Wilson or Fields, is the guy you want, that's where I'm going, right? Miami, at number 3. Thank you, Aldo. Miami number 3. That pick could be available, although there's scuttlebutt now that some of the players weren't happy with Tua. There's some question marks in terms of his arm talent, which is something I was bringing up last year. In terms of Tua's negatives that I brought up when I was scouting him. But we'll see how Miami does there. So I'm not sure if that pick's going to be available. Atlanta, are they already doing there? I think that pick won't be available. I'm trying to see how far up you can go. I mean, you could possibly go up, with the Giants at 11, trying to get ahead of San Francisco. San Francisco has the 12th pick. They might be looking at a quarterback, but yeah, I mean, for the Bears and Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, you got to look at these quarterbacks and say which one you want. List them on your board. 1, 2, 3. For me, it obviously it's Trevor Lawrence right now. Justin Fields 2. I think Zach Wilson is 3. My dilemma, and Neil, this is something that I want to throw on you and also the guys in the chat. If I'm the Bears and I'm sitting at 20 and we have Trey Lance available and Mac Jones available, I think I know which way you would lean, Neil, but it's why I'm curious. Who would you go with?
Oh, you know exactly where I'm leaning with that. It's Trey Lance.
All right. I figured you'd go there. But the only thing that, this is the only reason I'm thinking about it, right, is because athletically, he's got it all. Trey Lance, right? He's a guy that I've said on this show that he's potentially next Lamar Jackson in terms of as a ball carrier, the ball, and saying he's not as fast or as elusive as Lamar Jackson, but he's got that type of potential. He'll bring that type of element to your offense. My thing with him is it's a 1-year starter. And it's not his fault. The FCS canceled the season this year due to COVID. It's not his fault, but he's only been a 1-year starter. We just going through what we did with Mitch. This is probably a kid that you're not going to be able to bring in and start next year. So you're going to have to look at probably a Nick Foles or some sort of veteran starting for you because I don't think Trey Lance will be available, especially after sitting out the season. So that's my dilemma there is, and I know you don't want to pass up on talent, right? For a guy like Mac Jones, who is not as athletic, but he's cerebral. The guy's a smart kid. The guy's already got a master's degree. He graduated from Alabama. The guy has throws one of the prettiest deep balls in this draft class. Is accurate downfield. But he is not the athlete that some of the other quarterbacks are. And that's my dilemma. That's what I'm saying there. 1-year starter, great athlete versus a guy who just won a national championship, a guy who's been doing it for a year and a half now at Alabama. Yeah, he's got great weapons. Yeah, he's got a good offensive line, but he makes the right read. He plays in a pro style offense, and I'm using air quotes here. This is a kid that Mac Jones offers a lot. And if you're a team like the Bears that are coming into a season next year looking to win now, can you take a guy like Trey Lance and hope he develops into what you think he's going to be potentially, or do you go with a guy like Mac Jones, a guy that's a little bit more polished, a guy that might be able to come in and compete right away for a job?
Well, see, Trey Lance also has a lot of those similar things too. Trey Lance comes from a football family. Trey Lance is a ball junkie. Trey Lance is in the film room nonstop. And Trey Lance also has a stronger arm and obviously is more athletically gifted than Mac Jones as well. So, to say that, Mac Jones has, the disadvantage from a cerebral standpoint, whereas Trey Lance doesn't, I think that's pretty inaccurate because, from all accounts that I've seen, Trey Lance is one of those dudes that he pulls guys into the film room with him. He's always looking at tape. He's coaching up his teammates. He's a consummate leader. And again, I went back to that UCA game. What was it, in October when they played Central Arkansas? And that first half was incredibly clunky and it was rusty. And
I don't hold that against him because it's the
neither do I.
game of the season. Yeah, that's a lot of pressure. I wouldn't hold that against him.
Right, 100%. And so but you look at what happened in the second half when he came back, shook off some of the rust. Obviously, they opened up the offense a little bit for him. He used his legs. He fired that ball 50 yards in the air downfield off his back foot while he was being hit and completed the pass. I mean, it's there are no issues about this kid's arm strength. I think he can make all the throws. He's got it upstairs mentally where you want it to be. I really think the only question with that kid is going to be, how ready is he to go ahead and take the reins of an NFL locker room? He was able to completely dominate FCS football for as long as he's been the starter, which hasn't been very long, obviously, because he's been sitting behind two other NFL guys.
Right.
Once he got his opportunity, crushed it. 42 touchdowns, no picks in his 2019 season. Finally threw the first pick in his college career 2 months ago,
right?
Or 3 months ago.
The 1 year starting experience. I mean, that thing we went through. We just went through with Trubisky, the 1 year starter. Do you think that's going to give, fans? That's going to give Ryan Pace a little bit of an itchy trigger finger in terms of, well, do I want to deal with this again? But we have a question from Steven in the chat. Any veteran quarterbacks you are intrigued by? We went over the list last week. It's not really something that jumps out at you. We talked about, guys like Phillip Rivers, Cam Newton, Jacoby Brissett, Andy Dalton, I think Ryan Fitzpatrick, Jameis Winston, obviously Dak Prescott, but I think Dak's going to be either franchise or he's going to sign long-term in Dallas. So I don't think he's going to be available. Off that list, I think there's, rumors already that Jameis probably might be the heir apparent in New Orleans to replace Drew Brees after this season. So he might resign there. So we're not even sure if he's, and I'm not even sure if I want Jameis Winston, to be honest with you.
Hell no.
Yeah. So, I mean, the free agent quarterbacks don't look too good, Steven. Now, are there going to be other quarterbacks available via trade that we're not, privy to? Sure. That's always a possibility. Think of guys like the kid, Jimmy Garoppolo with the 49ers. They might be able to, or might be ready to move on from him if they get a quarterback with the, I think they had the 13th pick. So, or maybe they bring in a veteran. Matt Ryan might be available. Guys like that. Not that it'll happen here, but guys like Kirk Cousins could be available. Not that I'm interested in, but just giving you some examples of veteran quarterbacks that just might. Carson Wentz might be available.
Taylor Heineke, apparently.
Taylor Heineke. Actually, if it's funny because if the Bears had Taylor Heineke playing versus the Saints, they might have beat the Saints last week. That's how good that kid played last week. Limited versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But it's not a really it's not really a great list. Yeah, I mean, I think Garoppolo, if he's available, I think he's a step up or an upgrade from Trubisky. How much of an upgrade, we don't know. But I mean, I think Niel and I are both, lockstep on this decision. Is if you're the Bears, and correct me if I'm wrong, Niel, if you're the Bears, this is the draft to go get your future quarterback. I would not wait till next year's draft. I think this is the draft to go get him. Whether it's Fields, Wilson, Trey Lance, or Mac Jones. Those are the guys that both Niel and I agree have first round grades right now. Guys in that second tier are guys like Ellinger, Sam. Kyle Trask from Florida. And then another tier below that would be what? Kellen Mond, Kyle Purdy.
I like Purdy and I like Pickett, Kenny Pickett.
I think Pickett announced he's going back to for another year of
okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think he announced he's coming back. Yeah.
Yeah. As far as like mid-round guys, I think are worth a damn. I think Kellen Mond and Brock Purdy will be guys that you'd look at. And then after that, you look at developmental dudes that you really can't pin a 1 year, should get off the pot type of situation on. I mean, Skylar Thompson is the one dude that's really interesting, a guy that we would have had probably higher up on our list had he not gotten hurt.
Injured, yeah.
That's one dude that probably still has draft value given his production at the collegiate level. But he's not a dude that you go after and say, okay, yeah, Mitch, you're gone. We're going to bring in, Skylar Thompson. He's going to save the day.
Right. Yeah, he's an athletic guy. He intrigues me. Toughness. We talked about moxie. The guy who shows some leadership. A guy who does a lot more with his legs than his arms. I definitely a guy like you said, late round guy. Bring him in. Really intrigues me. Even so, I wish Aldo. I don't know if you can hear me, Aldo. I wanted to play that Ballard cut from this afternoon's press conference. Chris Ballard, the GM of the Colts, talking about something that we talked about here with Ryan Pace in terms of why isn't he drafting quarterbacks every year in the draft. So it was something. Hopefully we can get that queued up and play here for the guys. But I think his answer was intriguing. First of all,
one position you cannot. I don't know how long I can go. Just all of you go back and look at first round quarterbacks drafted over the last 10 years. It is not an exact. I mean, everybody just thinks you take one and you're going to fix the problem. Look, taking one will get y'all off my ass for a little bit. But the second that guy didn't play well, I'm going to be the first one run out of the building. I promise you, we get the importance of the quarterback position. But taking one, and the difference between just taking one and taking the right one is the key, in our minds. We'll explore it. We'll examine it. We'll go A to Z on it. I promise you, that position never leaves my mind. And it's something that we want to get fixed. But it's also, there's got to be a little bit of timing and luck come into play when you get it. I mean, look, you think about when you've got two of the greatest quarterbacks in this franchise's history since it's been in Indy, Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck, and it took the first pick of the draft. Well, I can promise you this, we hit the first pick of the draft, we're not going to be having these press conferences with me. It's going to be somebody else.
I just love that guy. I saw that interview and I'm like, why couldn't Ryan Pace be that transparent? And so the reason I thought of it is first of all, because of that. I mean, just the transparency, that just to be honest, guys, trust me, I want to get a quarterback. I need to get this quarterback position right. But we always talk about, why isn't Ryan Pace, doing what he said he was going to do, draft a quarterback every year, and then I think Chris Ballard kind of put it out there. It's like, if you draft, and I know he was talking high first round quarterbacks. He wasn't necessarily talking about second and third round picks, but if you bring in a quarterback, you have to get the right one. If you don't feel good about the one that you're going to draft, and you're just going to draft a quarterback because he's a quarterback, then you're wasting a draft pick. And then that could have gone to an offensive lineman or a linebacker or whatever position that could be useful, that could help your team. But so I think that kind of explains the thought process maybe of why Ryan Pace hasn't drafted a quarterback every year. We'll see, but it's funny because Ballard drafted that kid from Washington last year, and the name just the tall kid from Washington. I
can't think anymore.
Yeah, I forgot his name, but it's just that I just saw that and I was like, first of all, I love the candor, I love the transparency of my GM just talking like that, straight up. But then also kind of maybe you guys would be interested in seeing what other GMs think of, like maybe this is what goes into the thought process of a Ryan Pace in terms of why he doesn't go ahead and just take a quarterback every year. So just wanted, hopefully that Eason, thank you.
There you go. Jacob Eason. There you go.
Jacob Eason,
Good job, Steven.
Big
Can't
dude,
spell my name right,
arm.
but you know how to, come up with the right quarterback names.
Big kid, big arm. Doesn't appear like from the way Ballard's talking, doesn't appear like Eason's got a long tenure in Indianapolis. So we'll see how that turns out. But that's just awesome. So
can I say something about that interview real quick? That press conference with Ballard.
Yep.
I was scrolling through videos today, trying to find something else, and I came across Chris Ballard. In 5 seconds, I was hooked. Right?
Yeah.
The energy was incredible.
And
even Aubrey walked in as he was. I went back to watch it again because I didn't catch all of it. I wanted to get to a certain point. I think it was perhaps right around the point that you were talking about. But I wanted to get him, going in depth on something else. But Aubrey walked in the door, got home from work. She's like, "Who's that? He has great energy." It's like, that's what I said.
Dude, I met Chris Ballard at the CGS All-Star game. It's one of the first All-Star games that's played in Dallas Fort Worth, and I was like, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, and I was in the end zone, corner end zone, just. I was working for Inside the League, and I was just scouting these cornerbacks, and obviously he made his name off of scouting cornerbacks. And Greg Gabriel said that he's one of the better scouts he's seen at identifying talent in a defensive back. So I'm just sitting there looking, and here he walks up Chris Ballard. I'm like, oh crap, there's Chris Ballard right next to me, And I just started a conversation with him, and I talked about, Chris, I heard you, in terms of, picking quarterbacks, what are you looking for, and specifically, and he sits there and just 15, 20 minutes, we're just having a conversation in terms of feet, size, positioning. If the corner comes off at the line of scrimmage, does he have inside, outside leverage? If he has inside leverage, is he using the sidelines in his defense and to his advantage, to be able to defend the receiver? We just had a conversation like that. And right away I was like, this guy is awesome, right? And then, I don't know if you know the backstory in terms of when the Bears were looking for a GM and Ryan Pace was a candidate. I think Chris Ballard was a leading candidate. And, I don't know if you heard the story or not, but basically he goes in there and he tells the Bears that, all right, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to restructure the whole, scouting department, and Jay Cutler's gone.
Yep.
And Cutler was still in, I think, in I don't know, it's his second or third year of a long-term contract that Phil Emery had given him. And the Bears said no. And that's why they ended up going with Ryan Pace. So, that means those are the kind of decisions that really set a franchise back. So imagine, and by the way, believe it or not, people on Sports Talk Radio here were upset that Chris Ballard was a finalist for the job because he was a former Bear scout. And they said that, all they're doing is just bringing out their old boys back and typical Bears and blah, blah, blah. Well, see, look at this guy. This guy knows what he's doing. He's got the Colts. He went through, in his first year as a GM with the Colts, he went through a really hard time with McDaniel, backing out on him, a BS move, backing out on basically a handshake agreement to be the coach of the staff, a coach of the Colts. Last minute goes back to goes back to New England. And what does Chris Ballard do? He just says, you know what? No problem. We'll move on. He goes and gets Frank Reich. And now he's, look at him. Colts are 2 years in a row now are very good competitive teams in the playoffs. So that's a guy that not that guy, but the Chris Ballard is a guy that I wish was the Bears GM right now, because first of all, he's a straight shooter, good dude, and a guy like we just saw right now, transparent, and will answer your questions when you ask him.
Well, Factor One put it up there too. Like you get the feeling like he's being real, and that was the one thing that I thought when I was watching that. Like authenticity in the guy's speech, his demeanor, his body language, his eye contact, everything about his mannerisms was it was infectious, right? And I felt like for 90 minutes yesterday, it was just 90 minutes of, well, we're going to collaborate, and we really like how we battle through adversity, and scratch my eyebrow.
I was coming to sleep. I was waiting for something to come out, but I bet you if you ask Chris Ballard, what's different, in terms of now than what you did in 2017 picking Trubisky, I bet you he'd answer the question for you. I bet you wouldn't just dilly-dally around the answer. He would have given you a straight answer.
Tons of details.
In terms of what he's learned, in terms of why he made the mistake and how he's going to learn from his mistake, So and that's why really pissed me off was I don't want to be treated like someone said in the chat, or just like a paying customer, just to say something to make them happy. I want truth. I can handle the truth. Tell me the truth. Tell me, like Aldo had said earlier, George McCaskey, hey, you know what? These guys laid out a plan in terms of how they're going to improve next year. This is, I'm not going to give you all the, the details, but it's a solid plan and it's doable. And I believe in this plan. And I think if they are able to accomplish this, that we'll be back in the playoffs and we'll be competitive again. That's just tell me the truth, because you guys are meeting for 2 days. You guys weren't just sitting there, having, tea and biscuits, right? You guys were talking about football. These guys were potentially going to, lose their job. So they must have told you something that made you, keep them. So that's what I wanted to know. But I think that's almost 3-hour show here, guys. I think Niel and I are going to go ahead and call it a night. I want to thank you guys all for participating in the chat. It's been fun. It's been awesome. I don't know. It was so much fun just talking me and you, Niel, without Aldo. It's kind of
it's been a good time, man. No, sometimes what's one of the other buzzwords? You gotta have adaptability. It was one of the buzzwords I wrote down. Adaptability. That's what we did today. We had adaptability.
We collaborated. We play nice with each other. So we're kind of like Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. So there you go. Hey, you got the Matt Nagy look. I got the little bit of Ryan Pace, hair shaved on the side look kind of thing.
There you go. There you go.
Ray's going here too. So
we could have a parody show.
Although I don't think I have I can wear that tight shirt like Ryan Pace does, but anyway, that's neither here or there. So thanks guys for listening, participating in the chat. We do appreciate you guys. Hopefully we'll get the echoing issue with all those mic resolved for next show. And what we're going to do is, again, next week, we're going to be, I believe it's 2 weeks from today, we're going to have our next show, if I'm not mistaken. We'll post it out on Twitter. We'll let you guys know, keep you guys informed. And we'll be reviewing our internal offensive line. Don't wear a visor. That's for you, Neil. Do not wear a visor.
Joke's on you. I love visors.
All right, guys. So that's Niel Stopczynski. I almost messed up your name there. I'll just call him Stopper. It's easier to call him Stopper. And I'm Danny Shimon. And once again, thank you for listening, and good night.
Happy birthday.
Yo,
You want
Hey.
birthday state?
What?
Who?
Hello?
Did you want to a happy birthday?
Oh, no. I was right before we signed off. I was going to say happy birthday, Mom. My mom's birthday is today.
We're still on the air.
Are we?
Yes.
Oh, there it is. Happy birthday, Mom. Love you.